All right, I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. Director Snyder, would you please read our board priorities?
I will. Our board priorities are: the Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. 1, to provide leadership and direction to improve overall learning environment in our classrooms, our schools, and the district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of all students and staff. Direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. Director Dickman, would you please read our mission and vision statements?
I would be happy to. Our mission statement is to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. Our vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Superintendent Tate, we've got student board reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll start with Gabe.
On Wednesday, November 4th, the student council held a dodgeball tournament to help raise money for the student hunger drive. They raised about $200 with the event. And then our marching band is heading to Indianapolis this weekend. Is it this weekend? All right, to compete in the Band of America national competition, and they'll be leaving this Thursday. And our winter sports are starting up, including boys swimming, boys and girls basketball, boys and girls bowling, and wrestling.
All right. Hi, I'm Lorraine from Central. All right, so our tag teacher, Mrs. Henninger, was awarded as one of the top 5 Iowa Teachers of the Year, and that's pretty awesome. The Central Show Choirs had a blood drive pretty recently, and they raised $286. And in the past few years, the show choir program has collected over 150 blood products to help our community, and has donated almost $1,000 to the Have Life Foundation. Senior Braden Shipman bench pressed 275 pounds at the Falcon Friends competition this weekend, and he was awarded as the best teenage lifter. And we also wanted to congratulate Director Dickman. Second word, right? Awesome.
I'm Jim Heinrichs from West. We were fortunate enough to have 2 athletic teams go to state this year for fall sports. We had the cheer team and the girls swim team, and the girls swim team actually broke quite a few school records in relays, so that was pretty cool. And for the food drive, we also had the Freddie Falcon pageant, which was kind of this male beauty pageant type thing. It was really fun, and we raised a lot of money, so it went really well.
I'm Carolyn from West High School. In the last 2 weeks, we had a historic presentation on Meep Geese, who helped hide Anne Frank and her family. And then we had Mike Zeller, a professor from Iowa State, come help some biology students collect and study their own DNA. And then our fall play, The Nerd, was last weekend. It was really funny.
I'm Andrew. I'd like to start off by congratulating Ms. Dickman of actually being my award, so congratulations, you had my vote. So I'd like to talk about the hunger drive. So we've been doing a good job of getting almost everyone involved. It was teachers, students, everything. We did that with having a volleyball tournament and dodgeball tournament where we raised over $300 for the hunger drive. And then we actually last Friday had a pie in the face during the odd that Dr. Tate actually got to be there and witness me take a pie in the face, which hurt really bad. But all right.
With the pie in the face thing, I was selected to throw a pie in Ms. Bosco's face, but not my style. But a lot of things have been going on with our school, including with the hunger drive. We raised over 5,000 pounds of, cans and stuff. There's 4 more schools left still doing the hunger drive thing. We also, having a student award thing at our school, selecting kids who are doing amazing things in our school, having a score system, letting them know, putting their pictures up in this wall place thing and stuff, acknowledging students who do well. A lot of senior stuff too, trips and stuff. It's pretty going smooth,
Thank you, students. We always enjoy your reports. It's things that we don't pick up otherwise, and it's great to hear what's happening in the schools.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to board reports. Are there any? Director DeSalvo.
Couple things I failed to mention last week that I had attended the LCAC meeting the week before last, and continue on that committee. And then this week for a number of reasons, but I did attend the National Honor Society induction ceremony at North High School where 33 students were inducted into the National Honor Society. So congratulations to them.
Director Hayes.
I had the opportunity last week to attend the groundbreaking ceremony at Mid-City High for the urban farmers, and that was pretty interesting.
Director Dickman.
As the student school board members have alluded to, there was a city council election this past week, and there was a familiar sounding name on the ballot. And I'm very honored to granted an opportunity and excited to help with the transition for my replacement, I guess.
Director Goza.
I would just like to say the Wildcat 5th and 6th grade team, we went up to Cedar Rapids a couple weekends ago and took second place, losing to Iowa City. So,
any others? Director Kluhl.
Attended the several of us attended the AEA legislators reception last week. Well, it was very very enlightening. Had a very good discussion with our local legislators, and most interesting perhaps is that we developed in talking over a half hour with legislators the topic of trust, and wondering how we might engender trust, from the district level up through the legislative level and up to the governor. And I think we have a presentation tonight by Mid-City, which is one of those means to an end of developing relationships, which we are all about here on the board. So it was a very good and frank discussion, and I would look for further discussion as we move through the legislative season.
Any others? I've got one. Last week I met with a group. It's not exactly a committee yet, but it's a group of people that are very engaged and concerned about the Central City, the Hilltop community, that area. And that group wants to really get together and do some strategic planning for the city. What do we need to do? And it was pretty comprehensive. It was just a first meeting, get to know each other, what are our goals, things like that. And I do want to mention the people in that group were John DeTay, Scott Tunnicliffe, Cindy Winkler, Vera Kelly, Ralph Kelly, and I participated as well. It was a pretty lengthy meeting and went way beyond what we had set as our original ending time. But I think that group, which I expect will become some sort of a committee and will engage the city at some point, the school district at some point. They had a lot of ideas. They had a lot of passion about what should happen, what could happen. And I do want to say for those of you out there, because I made a commitment at that meeting to check on some information, and I did. And so this is a report not only to those people, but to our board. I did check with our lawyer this morning, Wendy Meyer from Lane and Waterman, to see whether there was any possibility of delaying the action with regard to J.B. Young. And she said no. She said that the decision that we made a couple of weeks ago was actually the decision on closing the school. The decision that we're going to make, or the vote that we're going to take tonight, is really a vote to affirm not only that decision, but the reasons for that decision. So I wanted to help clarify that for the board, but also for you members of that, I think, vital group. So that's my report. Anything else? All right, we'll move on. We have a showcase. Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Garfield School Principal Orfatelli is here. Thank you, Mike, for being here.
Thank you. Most everybody probably saw the agenda, and that's why we have such a great turnout. I appreciate everybody coming to listen to Garfield and our presentation on learning supports. Central High, West, and North. It's exciting to hear about the high school reports. Thanks for giving those. It's always exciting to hear what's going on in the high school. Also, as I'm listening to your book study, I'm thinking, wow, what we're going to present to you may dovetail and correlate with some of the things that you had spoken about. When you're talking about, first we want to play, then we have to have a passion, and then we work towards a purpose. And so at Garfield, as students are coming in at kindergartners, sometimes that's about play. And we start to focus our students on what some of their passions are, and hopefully moving them out with some sort of purpose or goals in mind as they're moving on to their next steps within the Davenport Community Schools. Our mission at Garfield is, in a safe and caring environment, the Garfield staff, families, and the community will work together to prepare our students to be confident learners and leaders. Our motto is your best, nothing less. And we relate that to many things throughout the day. It may be as simple as picking up trash in the cafeteria. How do we pick up trash, or how do we clean our area up? It may be how we line up after recess. It may be how we enter the building. It may simply be, as many of you may be thinking, our academics. And so we try to relate our motto, our best, nothing less, to everything that we do at Garfield. Learning and leadership is hopefully a fabric of what we're doing every single day at Garfield. And up there it talks about, or I'm outlining some of the monthly assemblies, but beyond that we have other programs in our building, which includes Gatorades. Our mascot is we are the Garfield Gators, and so the Gatorade is someone who would assist, an upperclassman per se, that would assist in a variety of ways with younger students, peer mentors, and you'll see a little snippet of our drum circle. In the next several slides, I want to give you a journey of some of our assemblies that focus on our learning and leadership as we're doing it as a collective group during the first 3 months of this school year. Our goals during these monthly assemblies are to obviously showcase student success, learning. We include students in the assemblies so they participate, help plan, and direct the assemblies. There's an anti-bullying message, and obviously, or as an outcome, it's goal-oriented. Congratulations, graduation is upon us. You see up there pictured, I'm presenting the classes of 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. Our class of 2024 are fifth graders. every time they walk up their staircase to go to the top level, they see large pictures that have marketing tools or pamphlets that have come from colleges and universities. And walking by those, we help to start instilling that message of a purpose as they're moving through Garfield and getting ready to go into intermediate school. During our second assembly, we had the fortunate opportunity to have some Central High Blue Devils, as we're the feeder school for Central High School, to come over and talk about our memories, or their memories, and speak to our students about where they're going, what they've done since they've left Garfield, and some of the goals that they have set forth. The curious thing that came about from this is I was looking at all of our faculty and staff that remembered those students, and there was more, I think, teary-eyedness and soft faces from the faculty and staff than the students, in a sense, to look out and see, wow, these were our third graders and fifth graders several years ago, and watch or look at how they've grown and how they're moving forward. You see there's murals on the walls there that those students have come back and were able to say, I had a piece of that. So they were able to roam the halls and share some of those memories as well. In our last assembly, we were able to bring back some Garfield alumni to talk to our students, to share their memories of Garfield. You see up there maybe some familiar faces that have been or maybe are still teachers within the Davenport schools and or Garfield. We have musicians that were able to play a self-written song, police officers, a string of other, again, teachers and secretary. And down in the lower right-hand corner, obviously they're not students that are career-oriented, but those students represent the interworkings of an assembly, running the sound, getting the microphones ready, and those types of things. So we're incorporating that leadership piece in all of our assemblies as we're moving through and creating confident learners and leaders. Last time we were here, I think it was, I don't want to say it was last year, but I think it was a year or so ago, we brought our drums and featured our drum circle. You can imagine there is volume. And so one of the pieces or one of the leadership values as working with a team or trying to accomplish a goal, our drum circle is one of the pieces that we have within our school. And I know some other schools in the district have since picked up the drum circle and the drumming as a piece of one way to instill those leadership values in our students. And I'm going to look at the side screen here to close this down. So when we look at some of the learning supports, when we think of elementary school, sometimes, you know, we are hunkered away and we're working hard to get reading, math, the other academics taken care of. But we're also working hard to try to get some of those extracurriculars and co-curriculars taken care of throughout our days and after school as well. We'll talk about a little bit of the visual arts, fine arts, and some of our activity. Our faculty, and I know we have two faculty members here. Kelly Ekstrand is a fourth grade teacher, and she's sitting way in the back of the room. And Candy Reed, our counselor, is another individual that is here from Garfield this evening. When I think of our faculty, I look at those individuals as being true models of what those goals, that leadership, that learning looks like, beyond just I'm going to model the appropriate behavior, or I'm going to model how to understand this math problem, or how to show you the main idea and details in some sort of reading passage. So they are models. They're anchors to show students what that finished product, so to speak, is going to be looking like. They're showing students opportunities, and they're providing high quality instruction. Each one of our students, you can see up here, or not our students, but each one of our teachers has a personalized name placard. This is one of those passionate pieces that comes from our art teacher, that as soon as we have a new employee come into Garfield, she does more of an interest survey and reclaims. She's kind of that type of artist that does a lot of reclaiming of old or used products and creates art. And so we see a couple there on the bottom of our kindergarten teachers, Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Thomas, or Miss Thomas. But this is for every teacher or every paraeducator that's in the building. I'd like to think about, and when you come out, any of the board members, and tour our building or participate in a title event, you'll be able to see our Museum of Art, which is not limited to 1 or 2 or 3 areas of the building. It's sprawled out and throughout the entire building. A couple of our newer pieces that are up there, on the left-hand side, again, Garfield Gators, but taken from the American Gothic artwork. You see it says, "Today a reader, tomorrow a leader." And that's a project that the Art Club has put together. An Art Club is an after-school activity run by our art teacher. Up there, it looks like a window pane looking out into a nice grassy area. Our cafeteria is in the basement of the school, and so to dress it up and to make it a little bit more homey, there's 3 windows in each side of the cafeteria showing nice scenes from the outside. And again, an art club project. Choir, one of the pieces I am always amazed with is our choir. When I first went to Garfield, I guess I had the wrong impression in saying, oh, they're going to sing a song, everybody's going to clap, we're going to sing. It's a mini show choir. It's a mini show choir event every time Mrs. Dowd puts a program together, and this gets shown to the students during the day as a dress rehearsal, and then that evening our choir then performs. So again, one of those extra leadership, learning, and best nothing less opportunities that they have. Activity, again, resulting from the people that we have in the building. Our teacher, our physical education teacher, Mrs. Schultz, is influential in keeping our students active. Up there I put a quote, "Exercise unleashes a cascade of neurochemicals," for our future neuroscientist up here, and growth factors that physically bolster the brain's infrastructure. Our Scarecrow Scramble is an annual event. This year it was 215 students strong. Our kindergarten through first graders run a quarter mile, second and third graders run a half mile, and fourth through fifth graders run a mile. Go the distance. Last year, or every May, there's a Go the Distance Day, and it's an annual event that everyone is encouraged, I believe, across the state of Iowa or maybe nationally to participate in. So we participate in the Go to the Distance Day. Intramural participation. We average 50 to 55 fourth and fifth graders per week, again, an after-school activity. And finally, last year, in the American Heart Association Jump Rope for Heart, we were able to earn $3,700 during our Jump Rope for Heart activity. Mileage Club is one of the most exciting things to present at the end of the year during our awards assembly. It's a recess activity. So during recess, students, yes, they can play kickball. We have play equipment that they have. We have Foursquare, which is a hot game, and we have basketball. But one of the other exciting pieces is simply running around the backstops in the backyard of Garfield. And as they run around, they collect clothespins, and they total up the clothespins, and each lap is one clothespin, and they keep track of those clothespins. There's a golden shoe competition. Lower grades, K through second graders, and third through fifth graders compete in different groups, and each classroom, or the classroom that runs the most collectively, earns the golden shoe. And this golden shoe is presented at an awards assembly. During the year 14-15 last year, our students amassed 12,412 laps. That's the equivalent of 2,482 miles. That's about the distance from the Quad Cities to Salt Lake City and back. At Garfield, again, beyond the classroom, hopefully our learning supports are creating that piece of community, sense of self, confidence, leadership, improved, or I shouldn't say really improved, because we really maintain a 95% average daily attendance, positive behaviors, and academic growth. So again, our mission is to create confident learners and leaders, and we're always trying to do our best, nothing less. I'm going to kind of put a little break in this, but move on to this next piece, which is a really exciting piece, not only for Garfield, but for the Davenport Community Schools. The ASCA is the American School Counselor Association. Garfield is recognized as a RAMP school. RAMP means that it's a recognized ASCA model program. And so the programming that our counseling department, our teachers, because I'll say to our counselor, oh, this is something that you did. And she always reminds me, no, it's not something that I did. It's something that we did. It's a collective effort across the board at Garfield to be a recognized program. Garfield's counselor is Candy Reed, as I introduced earlier. And you see a list up there of the schools that have this recognition. Kind of a small list there, and Garfield, again, is one of those schools within the state of Iowa. In 2014, and the board has recognized this during a prior board meeting, Candy Reed was awarded the 2014 Iowa Elementary School Counselor of the Year. She does a variety of things within the school. Beyond this list, classroom lessons, there are individual supports for students, supports for families, group lessons and support. She was an OAS pioneer in the Davenport Community School District. She's actively involved in bully prevention. She provides instructional support throughout the building. She's a mentor teacher within the Davenport Schools Teacher Leadership and Compensation System. She's a building and district leader. She's obviously a student advocate and motivator. She provides a wide variety of student programming. Those that you might think are in that role of a counselor, but those that go beyond that scope. Family liaison, and above all, she's a Garfield Gator. Candy's in many of these pictures up here, but she's a school counselor. She's passion. She's about action, and she's about results. You see down there in the lower left-hand corner, from our first assembly this year, a number of pennants that she had amassed and collected through networking, on the road herself, and in a variety of other ways to create that wheel. That's the title of that says Graduation Destination. Above that, in this very small picture, there's some gals with their hands on the hips. That's our cheer squad that she leads and heads up. The Creative Arts Academy was listed or named earlier, maybe during the book study and discussion. She coordinated students from not only Garfield but some other schools to go down and learn a choreographed dance from the Creative Arts Academy to the song from the Lego movie, Everything is Awesome. You see her and Pete the Cat there, smack dab in the middle. You see just an example in the upper right-hand corner of an assembly that, again, showcases students and their achievements. And then there with some Garfield alumni and the mural that they assisted in painting in our cafeteria. If you would please, and I'd have Candy, if you could please come up here, Candy Reed. Let's please help recognize Candy Reed. On January 29th of 2016, she will be representing the state of Iowa at the National Counselor of the Year ceremony at the White House.
This is overwhelming for me because I just never dreamed I'd be able to do this. So I'm representing the state of Iowa at this ceremony at the White House in the East Room. And last year Michelle Obama was there and spoke, and an actress was there to talk about the messages. And the National School Counselor of the Year, which isn't me. I wasn't a finalist, but I get to represent Iowa there, so I'm the Iowa finalist. And we get to be part of that. And there's also a gala in the evening, tuxedo, formal black tie thing, so that would be very cool. So I'm looking forward to all of that, and I've just never felt anything but support from Davenport in my years here, and really appreciate it. So thank you.
Would you have not leave so quickly?
Candy, come back.
And I don't know, Mike, do you have more of your presentation? Okay.
Grand finale, right here.
Well, grand finale is right, and but before I say anything, I'd like to ask any of the board members if they have anything to say to Candy or to Mike. Director DeSalvo.
Congratulations! What an honor!
Thank you.
I'm so honored happy for you to have this, and what an opportunity to go there. How long have you been teaching and counseling?
Well, I've been teaching for double my counseling, so I've been counseling for 23 years.
Amazing.
So, something like that.
Congratulations! We're extremely proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Director Dickman.
I was kind of hoping there would be a video of the cheerleaders with
Oh, they're good.
movies, the song. I would love to see if you would demonstrate that. I want that too. But no, I think I hope that you enjoy working with the district as much as I think that we're all really glad to have you. Long list of accomplishments, and I could see you kind of shying away from the microphone, but you kind of try to soak it in, I guess, because we really do appreciate it. And it's people like you that make a huge impact on our students' lives, and so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Director Hayes.
Congratulations. I am so happy for you. When I first heard about it, I thought, I can't wait to meet her. That is quite the honor to see that. And I was actually surprised sitting here looking at your slides to see my little guy on there helping someone.
No, we try to involve every student in everything that we do. So it's a whole school-wide program.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
You know, there are any number of reasons why I'm proud to be a member of this community school district. But, I worked with a couple of kids in mediation at Sudlow last week, and these two kids were so articulate in coming up with a resolution to their problem. I said, I would love to hire you both if you were of age. But with everything else going on and the people in our district, things that you have done, the passion that you have shared, means so much to me as an individual, and I know to this district as a whole, and certainly to the children that you've had under your care for these years. When did you develop a passion for what you're doing?
Well, I think you go through stages. When I first started teaching, I loved teaching. I'm still an educator. I consider myself an educator who counsels. I went back to school after I was here for a couple of years, and I take that back. I'm sorry. I went back to school after my first cycle of teaching, and decided to become a counselor. I worked in the alternative program which was 2001 at the time, for a couple of years, and at the time Jim Ingram was beginning an elementary program. So to be at that beginning stage was what I wanted to do, and that's where my passion started, and it just grew from there. I started with 4 schools, 1,450 kids. I sat in a room. Principals would look at me like, well, I don't know what to do with you. And so we grew from there. So I think we're a really viable part of the district, and we have, I believe, 14 counselors now. Ellen Riley has been nothing but supportive, worked with Cindy Winkler, Mr. Schnaden, there's got to be others throughout the years, and it's always just been support, and they always kind of just let me go. Mr. Orfatelli's just like, what do you think? What do you want to do? Go for it. So support's been there, and it's been easy to do that, and I love what I do.
Oh, it's interesting to hear you. And one of the things that we talked about tonight in our book discussion was innovation. In fact, that's exactly what we talked about. But one of those things that innovation requires is a space to grow, and one of those things is the freedom to operate with the skills that you have and not feel like that you were totally scripted in what you did, and clearly that seems to be part of what helped you have the passion, maintain
Absolutely.
the passion that you came with.
Mhm.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Candy.
Thank you for your time.
Director Snyder, you got anything? No? Okay. Is there anything for Mr. Orfatelli? All right. I wanted to say thank you very much for your presentation, Mike, on Garfield, but I think, Candy, well, you didn't even let me get
Sorry, I thought you were done. I'm sorry.
So, you know, everything that's been said is so true. And I don't even know how long I've been on the board, but it's probably going on about 12 years. And up through last year, I'd never seen a standing ovation. And last year we had 2 of them. And I thought that was pretty cool. And but I think this is a fantastic award, not only award, but situation that you're in, but the work that you've done for our students and for our district, I think, is worthy of another standing ovation.
All right, let's
So-
do it.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you very much.
Thank you, Candy, and thank you, Mike. Next up is a presentation, Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. As most people know, last year we worked very hard with the legislature to try to get a bill passed, any bill passed that would help us with our financial situation where we're not getting as much as other districts. And although we were not able to do it, we have some students that were. So Dave Thiede, if you want to come forward and tell us how you did it, because we need to know for next year.
Thank you, Dr. Tate. But first thing is, I'm not going to tell you. There you are.
Hi. I'm Izzy from. We're from Mid City, and we're in Iowa Youth Congress. It's an opportunity for students from different school districts to come and mimic our legislators in the capital of Des Moines, and we get to go into the actual House of Representatives and sit in the chairs and debate bills that we have put time in and created on our own time. We learn to use our communication skills and debating, and get to create bonds with each other as we come together and try to push bills that we worked really hard on. One thing that I think is most important that we learn self purpose, where we as youth can actually make a change in not only just our communities but possibly around the world. I think that is really awesome about Iowa Youth Congress. We go to Des Moines twice, first for debating and things of that nature, and the second time we go for lobbying, where we try to talk to representatives and get them on our sides to help us push our bills. I've been in Iowa Youth Congress for 4 years now, and I like it. Every year I come back and I learn something new. It's not the same thing over and over again. I learn something new, and I push myself a little farther to get out there and stand up and talk. I was really quiet at first, but once you do it, it's easier. It gets easier, and it's much more fun when you get into it. You want to talk about our bill?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Christine Bine. This is my first year in being Iowa Youth Congress. Before joining, I had no idea that this even existed. So joining this was definitely a change because, yeah, I'm a talkative person, but like I normally don't talk in front of like big crowds of people. But I've been learning how to speak correctly, keep my composure very well, because before this, yeah, I was very nervous wreck. But it has helped me learn more about Iowa government and how there are certain things that we can pass that is possible for us.
Okay, my name's Alex, and I've been in Youth Congress for 2 years. And as you can see, I'm kind of shy with people, especially new people. So this has really helped me learn how to talk. Yeah, I know. And so with friends and everything, so our bill is, I'm going to do the middle school. Okay, never mind. Off topic. Okay, so our bill is going to be, we're going to try and do the funding. It will equal funding for our school. It will Davenport schools. And so what that is, it's, they don't take money out of taxes, but it will help our schools with like the basics like books and other things. Well, yeah, and technology. Do you want to talk about it? You know more about it than I do.
Our bill equalize school funding is to give school districts a chance to get things that we are lacking in our schools. Some schools get more funding than others, and leaving a lot of other schools behind on fundings and things. I agree with this a lot. There's schools that struggle with books and things of that nature, and it's a very sad excuse for us not to be able to use the funding that we have. It's sitting there and we're not able to touch it, which isn't fair at all. So I think that if we continue pushing this, that we'll be able to, you know, give our schools and our kids something to, you know, more opportunities, and maybe even grow programs and things, you know, if we open up those fundings and let our schools use them. That's a bit of it, right? So.
Now you can make the pitch.
And then also, we, Iowa Youth Congress, would like to know if it'd be cool if we can introduce our middle schoolers to Iowa Youth Congress. When we went, I believe it was last year and this year, there was a middle schooler that was attending it, and just one though. She was pretty cool. She seemed to be intrigued in it. I mean, why not bring younger, you know, kids into it? I mean, it opens up and, you know, opens our minds and gives us ability to stretch out and make a difference in our schools and things like that. I think it'd be cool. Oh, sorry, but that's how I talk. Do you guys have any questions? Any chance?
I'm sure we do. Director DeSalvo.
So do you leave school and go as a group up to Des Moines?
Yes.
Okay.
We do.
And I think I know of somebody that might want to join your group.
Yeah.
So I'll see you later, but I think he would be very interested in to have the opportunity. So thank you for what you're doing, because believe you me, I know it's a difficult task, but if we're all in this together and we keep going at them, we will have success. So wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Director Hayes.
I am very impressed with you young ladies. You always hear out of the mouths of babes. And I think when you're willing to speak up and pass the message along, people are more receptive to hear it because they can actually hear your views and what you want and why you feel it should change. So thank you very much for stepping forward and putting the effort forth to do so.
Director Dickman.
I'm really excited that you guys are on our side because, you know, I look at you guys and first of all, I have hope for the future. So that's awesome. I know it's really nerve-wracking to come up and speak in front of people into a microphone. And it's just amazing that, especially at your young ages, that you're up here doing this already and that the understanding that you have of these really complex issues. I don't think most of the people sitting on this board had this level of understanding of this complex of issues when we were at your age. But I kind of see you guys as kind of unstoppable going forward, and so I'm really glad that you guys are working on the same side of the thing as we are, and I'm glad that hopefully we'll all be able to work together and make sure that Davenport's getting treated equitably.
Director Snyder.
I wanted to thank you guys for coming to share with us. For those that don't know, you guys must have been extremely persuasive because when you first presented this, you didn't have the support that you ended up with. You ended up, after debating this, 3 or 4 votes, if I'm not mistaken, shy of a unanimous decision, and that is almost unheard of. You guys should be extremely proud of yourselves. That day when I was there to see you guys off, I left there excited because you guys were excited. And I talked to my wife later that afternoon and I said, these kids are going to do something good this year. I said, it was pretty amazing. I had a long talk with Christine and it was really, really fun to see you guys that involved. So I want to hear from you guys. When you got there, was it what you expected, more than what you expected? What were your impressions of, I mean, because it's a pretty big ordeal.
All right, well, joining this and going into the debate was more than what I expected, definitely, because I didn't expect much. I didn't know what to expect, actually. Just walking in was just, the building was just beautiful, and then walking around it when we had a break, that was very, very interesting to see where people actually have like business and they actually do work there every single day. So it was definitely an honor and a privilege to come and see the building, and while debating, it was kind of just hard to understand everything that was going on. So it's good that we all understand where we're coming from and where we are now, and I'm very proud. Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Goza.
I would just like to say I'm extremely proud of you ladies, and I think it's even more cool that you want to involve the junior high kids and kind of teach the future as well. So that's very cool of you.
Director Kluhl.
Yeah, my daughter was she was little, and we made her take piano lessons. She didn't really want to, but she did. But, you know, about 2-3 years later, she said, you know, Dad, it's funner now because my fingers know where to go. And I think what you're talking about, and having done this for several years, you go now, you know what's coming, you're a lot more comfortable with it, and the passion that is very obvious in you is coming out, and that's inspiring. And you folks that have, you know, just started it just recently, stick with it because it's good for you, and we need all the support we can get at the Capitol building. And you know, we had legislators when we were there, because we went there and talked about the same issues, but a couple of those legislators said, you know, you send one student, it's worth 5 of you guys with suit coats. So your voice counts big time. What's next in terms of the equalization funding issue that you brought up? What is your next move?
Well, our next move is to email representatives, and then when we go back to Des Moines, to the Capitol for Lobby Day, we're going to talk to several representatives face to face, and hopefully build up some kind of army, I guess, to to get it through. And if not, if we have to put on one occasion we had to redo it one time, and if we have to do that, then we're going to have to redo it. Then we're going to talk to them and hopefully maybe get new ideas, or so yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. It wasn't failure, it's just another iteration. One of the things that we talked about tonight is taking risk. You all have taken a risk. Sometimes you fall, but you learn from it. You pick back up. The old Chinese saying, I think, is you fall down 7 times, you stand up 8. So thank you for what you're doing.
Anybody else? Director Snyder.
Just one last thing I wanted to mention. Kind of to put this into perspective, when you guys go home tonight, think about the things that you've done have the potential to affect thousands and thousands of kids across this state. And there's not very many people in this room that can say that they've done that. Mm-hmm. So, again, to say I'm proud of you guys is a complete understatement.
Director DeSalvo.
I think this calls for another standing ovation. Just saying, this is a big deal to me, so I applaud you guys. It's amazing.
Excuse me, school board members, but I did want to make sure that we recognize the rest of the students who couldn't make it because of jobs and babysitting. Aside from Christine, Izzy, and Alex up here, Austin Winters, Christian Hahn, Hannah Walker, and Jalen Crawford from Mid-City are also a part of this. And Katie Lang from Central also came up and represented. And I'd like to introduce my co-sponsor for this, and this is Mr. Travis Shepard here. And we'd like to thank our principal, Jake Klepp, for all his support. Without his support, we wouldn't have the van to get him up there. And so, and giving us a release time to get out. And we would also like to call out Director Snyder and Director Gosa. Way to rock the Mid-City Purple, guys.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Izzy and Christine and Alex. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Really, really important. Thank you. All right. Well, we've had a great night so far. We'll move on to communications. Director DeSalvo, would you please read our upcoming events?
Thank you, Mr. President. November 11th, we are closed for Veterans Day. November 17th at 5:30 p.m. there will be an LCAC meeting in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. November 23rd at 6 p.m. there's a regular meeting in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. November 26th and 27th we are closed for the holiday. December 1st at 4 p.m. there's a Legislative Advocacy Committee meeting. You did move it to 4, thank you, in the Jim Hester Boardroom. December 7th at 5:30 p.m. I'm sorry, December 2nd at 4 p.m. there's a policy committee meeting in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. December 7th, 5:30 p.m. there's a committee of the whole meeting in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. December 14th at 6 p.m. regular meeting in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. December 23rd through January 4th there is no school. December 24th and 25th we are closed for the holiday. December 31st and January 1st closed for the holiday.
Thank you. Next is open forum. We have a few requests. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. Excuse me. Tonight's a pretty important evening for a lot of reasons. I only have 4 requests. Normally, as I mentioned, we would like the request before the meeting. If there's anybody that came late and still wants to submit a request, please feel welcome to get the requests. I think they're on the back table. Get them up to our board secretary before we end the open forum, and we'll allow you to speak. We have 4 requests right now, and so I'm going to give 3 minutes per person that wants to come up. First is Jack Ox. Next is Toby Payon. Third is Cindy Winkler. And fourth is Nikki DeFow. So we'll start with Jack.
Good evening. My name is Jack Ox. I'm here as I'm a West High School teacher. This is my 13th year at West. I'm a 20-year Army veteran. I want to continue to make a difference, so now I teach. This year I'm teaching economics.
Jack, I need your address too.
Oh, okay. 4018 229th Street, Circle North, Port Byron.
Thank you.
I teach right now. I'm teaching economics, American government. I'm certified to teach all topics in social studies. Some of my students are here tonight as part of my public meeting project. If you guys could raise your hands. There they are. As citizens, we are expected to participate in a democratic process, and I want to model that for my students. First, I want to thank you for being school board members. You donate countless number of hours to this endeavor, and you too are making a difference for our community, so thank you again. Tonight I want to talk to you about 3 concerns. 1, assigning special ed students as gen ed classes, keeping the library open after school for students, and the increase in the size of my classes this year. First, as a gen ed teacher, I'd like the district to consider a policy where you don't assign a special ed student to a gen ed class without giving them a resource lab. You see, if you mainstream gen ed special ed students in a gen ed class, then they need extra help to keep up with the other students. If you don't give them the resource lab, you're just setting them up for failure. Second, there's no safe place for students to go to after school that has access to the internet. Our school is locked up tight at 3:30. Many students at West need a place to go to do their homework that is safe, that has an adult there that can help them, and has internet access. I recommend we find the funding to keep all high school libraries open to 4:30. You can pay the library assistant to stay there later, or better yet, fund teachers from different content areas to help students and rotate them through on a daily basis. What I passed through is an example of what we used to do at West under the Gear Up program to help students. The bottom line is that students need a place to go to after school. We are a public school, and we have an obligation to help our students. And finally, I want to address my class size. I realize this is totally dependent on funding, and I'm aware of the district's funding shortfall. However, there's a reason why my average class size has gone up 38% from last year. It's because of the Teacher Leader Program. Here are the numbers. Overall, I taught 221 students last year in my American Government, Econ, and Psychology classes. This year I have 305. My class sizes are 28, 27, 26 this term. You see, what happened was this. We took the best teachers, made them teacher leaders to help train other teachers to be better. This is a great program. However, what the district did was take these few good teachers, these teacher leaders, took them out of the classroom but didn't replace them. So on one hand, you're helping education by increasing the effectiveness of teachers, but on the other hand, you're increasing our class size to an unmanageable level. I don't really need that help. So please find a way to fund the replacement for teachers you took out of the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jack. Next is Toby Payon.
Good evening. I'm Toby Payon. I live at 2602 East 18th Street here in Davenport. I'm also a member of the Iowa State Education Association, and with me are some the leaders of the executive board of the Davenport Education Association. We have Carmen Woods from North High School, Junior Jimenez from Jefferson Elementary, and Sarah McGlynn from Monroe Elementary, and I want to ask them to speak briefly about their recent advocacy at the national level in Washington, D.C. for our members and for people in the school district.
Good evening. My name is Sarah McGlynn. I am a board-certified first grade teacher at Monroe Elementary and have been a member of the second cohort of teacher leadership, of the Teacher Leadership Initiative program through the NEA. In fact, Junior was part of the first cohort. And we spent the last year and a half or so working sometimes weekly on different webinars and Zoom video conferences with people all across the nation. So you can imagine time zones are a challenge. And I have been working on a social justice committee as well as working to further our association. And then we spend the entire year working on enhancing our leadership skills and then creating a capstone project. And my capstone project ended up becoming the creation of a committee, the Active Community Conscious Teachers Committee, that is solely designed to educate and empower and support first to 10-year teachers. In doing that, we created the new teacher store you may have heard about. That was kind of a big hit. And with the help of Toby and a few other DEA members, we were able to write a grant and have that further funded for an additional $500 that we can use to further that cause, and that I plan to shop around to fund match with several local organizations like Kiwanis and Rotary and things like that. And I was just in DC this past weekend to kind of as a culmination project for our Teacher Leadership Initiative, and where we were able to kind of meet with all of the other, there were 50 other teachers that were selected to come, and we were able to meet with each other to talk about some of the successes and struggles and how we can network with each other. And if I ran into this hitch, then I had 49 other people who were in a similar situation, and we could all kind of hash out some of the ways that we could further our projects and see them to the next level, as well as have a sort of celebration at the National Press Club with a lot of national media, the directors of the NEA, as well as the teacher quality and national board programs there as well. So that was my project for the last year and some change. I'll turn it over to these guys.
I'm Junior Jimenez, 4th grade at Jefferson. Along with what Sarah was talking about, we are focusing on the ethnic minority leaders, bringing up ethnic minority leaders just in the state of Iowa. We are both part of the Iowa State Education Association Multicultural Committee, and we were both in D.C. this past weekend also. And it was a very innovating, very aspiring workshop as far as bringing up leaders. And as you can see from the handout that we gave you, our foundation is just student success as far as our ethnic minorities and bringing them up and having diverse education leaders in our profession.
And just to add on to what Junior said, I'm also a part of the district's Grow Your Own, trying to bring that back, Future Educator, Future Teacher Club. So I really like the fact that I can tie in what I'm doing in the district also at the state level. But again, the form, even though 31G was our workshop, that is just the NEA bylaw. But ultimately, the goal is to make our teaching staff reflect the students that we are trying to educate. Thank you. Oh, any questions?
Oh, we don't get into discussion, but sometime later, if you want to make a presentation, feel free to participate. Okay, thank you very much. Next is Cindy Winkler.
Good evening. Cindy Winkler, 630 Court in Davenport, and I'm also state representative of House District 90. And as I went through to look at the schools and children and families that go to those schools that I represent, it would be Central, West, Mid-City, JB, Smart, Sedlow, Hoover, Children's Village, Jefferson, Monroe, Buffalo, Hayes, Jackson, Washington, Madison, McKinley, and the Lincoln and Johnson schools were in my district as well. I am anxious to hear some additional information about the AVID program as we look at next steps for JB and what we can maybe turn lemons into lemonade. When we shift the conversation to meaningful education programs for our students, I'm pleased that one of the options are giving the students who attend JB or other students in the community to choose to stay at JB. I don't think that the three choices that have been presented are mutually exclusive. I think that we could certainly continue to support the students who transition from JB to another building. If there is no attendance center at JB, the district will have to redraw the boundary lines in order to make sure that the individuals that do not choose to attend JB, if the choice is to have an educational program there, they need a place to go. And I think that there is no reason for the building not to be mixed use. I mean, it's important that we have, if we're talking about reflecting the community, it's important that it has mixed use, including the Achievement Service Center. I want to give a few dates that you might want to place on your calendar as we move forward, not so much about JB, but also about the funding inequity. December 2nd has been set as the day-long meeting from the interim committee. We have 3 members on that committee this year, myself, Representative Ross Poston, and Senator Robbie Smith. The other thing, as you're looking at moving legislation forward, February 19th is the first funnel, which means that all of the bills have to be out of their respective committees in order for them to continue through the process. So all of the efforts for the funding inequity and getting a bill on the floor would end on February 19th. So keep that in mind. Thank you. I can look it up. I don't have that right now, but and that would be the second funnel would then be where the Senate files would have to come out of the House committee or the House files out of the Senate committee. So there we are. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. Is Nikki here? All right, then we're going to move on. I got a request from somebody with a long name. It's Zahishan Baker Hubbard. Want to tell me how to pronounce that properly?
It's Zayshawn.
Zayshawn.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Zayshawn. Live 1922 East 38th, and I'm a student from West High School. And I would like to say that that I know y'all been talking about next year about school schedules and stuff, about how changing the periods and times. And I wanted to say that a lot of students would like not to like that, because that would probably like throw off their rhythm and times and have bad times and like not able to do work at all, because you're gonna give them all the core classes in their first quarters and stuff, and it's gonna be hard for them to keep up with their classes. And I also would like to say to reduce a lot of time for schools, because some classes are extra long and people just tend to get bored in class and fall asleep. And I would also like to say that no, that's it, never mind.
Hey, thank you, Zayshawn. It takes a lot to come up here, and we really appreciate that, Zayshawn. And thank you to Jack and Toby and Cindy as well. It's really important, all of your community input, and it really does mean a lot to the board. So thank you very much again. Move on with the rest of the meeting. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I would like to pull out number 7.03.
Okay. Is there a motion for the consent agenda other than 7.03?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the consent agenda with the exception of 7.03.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote, and this is for the consent agenda, and with the exception of 7.03, we'll go ahead and have 7.03 immediately after this vote. May I have a vote for the consent agenda? Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluel.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding 7.03 contract with Computer Information Concepts?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move 7.03, the contract with the contract with Computer Information Concepts for $32,360.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
I'm just curious as to what this is and what we use it for, because it talked about the license for Tableau's server annual license and support, but it doesn't really tell what it's for.
Mr. Snaden, Dawn Anderson Rasher is the expert, but she isn't able to be here, so we have a semi-expert.
Semi-expert, right. The Tableau is used by our building administrators. It really creates a dashboard, the volumes and volumes of data that we collect on demographics, student achievement. It really is a way to create a dashboard. If you can imagine, you can pull up any set of data and then you can sort it by ethnicity. You could say, I want to see all the second graders who attended this school. It can even get down to the teacher of the students. And it's used by data teams, student achievement teams, building decision making, and certainly at the district level quite often. It's really just it's a software system that allows us to make better use of all the data that's available. I mean, that's in a nutshell what it's used. The $32,000 contract is an annual contract, and it's about $2 a student is the way they calculate the bill. And it's an unlimited amount of licenses. In the past, they've been restricted, but this allows all administrators all administrators to be able to have access to it.
Okay, thank you. That was one of my questions, is who has access to it. So, all right, thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, great. Is there any more discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to use abbreviations here. Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director Kluel.
I move that the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolve the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the period of October 22nd, 2015 through November 4th, 2015.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, call for the vote. Director Kluel.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This summer, Patrick Wader asked his mother if he could clear out their family garage. He moved in pallets and carpets, and he started accepting donations that could be used by needy people. So he was overwhelmed by the generosity of people to give him these donations, but his job was to categorize them, put them in the garage, take pictures of them, and then he put them on a website, Quad Cities Free. To date, he's given away over 1,000 items that people will see on the website. Contact him, and then they'll make arrangements and come over to his garage. Now, sometimes he gets large items, and when he does that, he will actually hold a raffle. He'll just pull out a name of someone that's on the website and let them know that they won. For example, in September, it was a watch. October, it was a lot of cherished teddies. November was a Child's Play kitchen, and December's was just posted, and it is a huge Child's Play kitchen. So a lot of people are benefiting from his vision, from his hard work, and I know his mother certainly assists that because he's a 6th grade student at our Creative Arts Academy. We expect him to be at work every day, and his mother can kind of run the thing till he comes home. And he is right now a straight A student. He was nominated to receive an award from the RAA Federal Credit Union and KWQC, and he won that award, and he'll receive $500 for himself. He gets $250 for the Quad Cities Free, which is the operations which he manages, and he's turned around and is donating a portion of what was given to him to the Creative Arts Academy. So I'm glad he's here tonight. Patrick, do you want to stand up and take a bow? Thank you so much. You're one of my heroes.
And you can also watch him at Paula Sands Live tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. At 3?
Yep.
Thank you, Mom. The Davenport Community School District was one of 12 top schools in Iowa, awarded the College Board's on the College Board's honor roll for the annual advanced placement, and we're one of 547 districts in the U.S. and Canada, and realize there's over 15,000 districts in the U.S., so that's some pretty good company. It's for increasing the access to advanced placements and increasing the percent of students earning a grade of 3 or higher on the advanced placement test. Governor Branstad awarded the 216 Iowa Teacher of the Year Award to Gail Henniker, which she was one of the 4 finalists. We heard that tonight, but certainly I want to mention that again. And Steve Verdon, North High School business teacher, selected as the Outstanding Secondary Business Educator of the Year for 2015 by the Iowa Business Education Association. So we have great students, we have great faculty, and we have a district of distinction.
Thank you. Great report. We'll move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion for the approval of Seardorf contract?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve a credit from Seardorf Masonry in the amount of $93,500 for changes to the contract for Central Pool and Auditorium.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Director Dickman.
So does this mean that we get $93,500 towards something else on the project?
This is a result of what we call value engineering, where we look at all of the things that were in the contract and say, is there anything that we could cut out without harming the scope and the quality of the project that would reduce the cost? And so we looked at some things. One of the examples is there was some really pretty expensive glazed brick that was to wrap some interior columns, and we went with something that was less expensive to wrap those same columns instead of the glazed brick, and some other things that don't affect the performance, quality, or scope of the work, but do reduce the cost.
Thank you.
Director Gosa.
I just had a quick question. I noticed on one of them, you're reducing the thickness of your insulation from 3 inches to 2 inches. What is that on?
That's going to be some exterior wall insulation.
So if you're taking an inch away, what R value is that giving you now?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that was calculated by the engineer, and when the result was the recommendation to make the reduction that was shown in the change order.
Did you have more, Director Gosa?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Director Kluhl.
Just curious about this value engineering. Is this an amicable relationship between the contractor and the district to come up with these savings?
Yes, we sit with each of the subs, the architect, the engineer that's involved, and ask a variety of questions about what are some of the ways that we could reduce the cost. You may recall that in the budget presented, we had a goal of about $300,000 of cost reductions. We haven't achieved all of those. Right now we're approaching 200,000. I don't recall the exact amount because we're still working with some of the firms on ways to reduce the cost. You'll see some of them are not over $50,000 and don't require board approval, so you won't see them all. But an example was we reduced the amount of acoustic insulation on the top of the fly loft. None of the other high school auditoriums, including the new Bettendorf one, have any acoustic insulation. They only have the thermal installation. So we reduced the amount of that. That also reduced the size of the steel bar joists. Those are priced by the ton. So we got tens of thousands of dollars in reductions for the change in that acoustic insulation, and then again over 10,000 for the change in the steel bar joists. And these were some of the things that we've examined to attempt to achieve some cost reduction in the project. And so when any of those single items are over 50,000, they'll have to come to the board for approval. When they're under 50,000, there's an administrative approval process. But we've achieved nearly 200,000 so far in the value engineering effort.
I appreciate your scrutiny. And in your perspective, then there's no perceptible loss in acoustic isolation with this savings?
No, we don't think there's any perceptible, and that really was kind of our argument. We had a very fine quality acoustical engineer on this project, and they tried to do a lot of very fine things, some of which were quite expensive, and we thought that that was not going to be a sacrifice that anyone except those of us on the team would perceive once the auditorium was in operation.
Okay, thank you.
Director Dickman.
I guess I wanted to clarify, so there's not going to be any long-term utility costs for making this change, or are we potentially looking at, like, is this purely for sound, or was there heat?
The insulation we're talking about was purely for sound. There was some sound insulation and thermal insulation. We have not changed the thermal insulation.
Okay.
Only the sound.
Thank you. That helps.
Anything else? I've got a question on the first, number one, omit the liquid vapor barrier. And that seems like a really important thing.
Well, the vapor barrier is going to be accomplished through a different means. So it's omit the specified one, but that will be accomplished with a different means.
And so the 50,000 is just a difference, or is that actually the credited amount, and then you're going to spend more on the other method?
It's the net.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. And before I forget, we have a binder, right, for Reverend Grimes, is that right?
I think it's his, because his stuff is in it.
And I didn't see Reverend Grimes earlier, but I just wanted to, I don't know how we got a hold of this, but we want to return it, so just be aware of that, and if somebody can contact him, our secretary will have that. May I have a motion regarding approval of Tri-City Blacktop contract?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I recommend the board approves a credit from Tri-City Blacktop in the amount of $51,040 for patching for Mid-City High School.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Snyder.
This one was hugely different from the original estimate of 79,000. I guess what changed in the overall scope of the work to where it ended up only being 28,000?
I'm sorry, I'm not looking, I didn't see the same document.
Just says the original contract sum was 79,300. They ended up changing 51,000 for deducting $51,000, making it 28.
I see the line you're looking at.
Okay.
The original contract was for all of the asphalt paving work associated with the Physical Activity Center addition at Mid-City, and in that $79,000 total was a 54 or 52,000, I'm sorry, I don't recall, allowance because the new building was being built on the far side of the brand new parking lot, and we were concerned that there may be construction damage to the existing parking lot.
Okay.
And so we provided an allowance in case that did occur to replace that asphalt. It did not occur, and so there was some $960 of damage done, but the remainder of that allowance was not needed nor spent and is returned to us as a credit, reducing the cost.
Okay, so this was a built-in safety net then.
Exactly.
Is there more discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of level 1 and 2 investigators?
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move the administration's recommendation that the board approve the level 1 and level 2 investigators as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of DCSD negotiation team members for DEA teacher contract negotiations?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the following negotiation team members for DEA teacher contract negotiations: Marcia Tangen, Chief Financial Officer; Robert Scott, Executive Director; Steve Millenhausen, Principal at Madison; Sherry Womack, Principal at Keystone Academy; Scott McKissick, Principal, Central High School; Jabari Woods, Associate Director of Human Resources; Deb Miller, Director of Human Resources; Jamie Kroger, Human Resource Specialist; Sue Hersman, Benefits Facilitator; and James Hanks from Ehlers Law Firm.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion for approval to adopt the final written decision on the closing of J.B. Young K-8 school?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board affirm the rationale for the decision to close J.B. Young Intermediate School.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I want to talk on this for a minute before we get into the discussion. So, Director Kluhl's motion was a little bit different than adopting a final written decision on closing J.B. Young K-8 school. This is a this has been a difficult issue for the board, for our district. The superintendent had a consulting team that put together a lot of information to look at all of this over the past year or so. I don't even know what time frame was involved. We have a specific policy that the board tries to follow to the extent that it can every policy. This particular one is very, I hate to use the word cumbersome, but I think that's how I'm going to describe it. It has specific, you have to do this on the third Wednesday of the second month following the full moon kind of stuff. And it is challenging to go through that and figure out exactly when everything had to be done. In this particular case, the board moved a couple of weeks ago to go ahead and close J.B. Young. And now it has another motion that's come up, and I don't even remember. Oh, sorry. I hope, could everybody hear me earlier? I don't even know exactly what the motion was that Director Kluhl is moving, but can you describe it one more time? Okay.
The vote is to affirm the rationale for the decision to close J.B. Young Intermediate School.
Oh, they couldn't hear you.
The vote is to affirm the rationale for the decision to close J.B. Young Intermediate School.
Okay, thank you. The reason I wanted to explain that is that this is a process that I don't know that we've ever used exactly. And so the rules, we have a policy committee that puts these things together. This particular rule came from a state law long ago that doesn't even exist anymore. But we have it as a policy. It's very, very rigid. And so I just wanted to express that a little bit to our board, but also to all of you out there so you understand a little bit why we're doing it is that our policy says we have to. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. Must be some discussion. Director Kluhl, you want to read the rationale anyway?
Sure. This is based on the superintendent's executive summary of the long-range facilities plan, August 18th, 2015. The background: in 2014, the Board of Education tasked administration to update the long-range facility plan. RDG Design Group of Des Moines and architects SGGM from Davenport were chosen for the project. They compiled data and analyzed information to help plan and budget improvements 10 years into the future. The process: all buildings were analyzed, including evaluating mechanical and plumbing systems. Additionally, pavement, site design, transportation, traffic around schools, roofs, exterior cladding, and windows and doors were inspected. A 10-person leadership team comprised of administrators and engineers collected and analyzed the facility information, and during the evolution of the plan, it was shared on 2 occasions with an expert panel of real estate, property development, facility management, and construction professionals who made suggestions. Additionally, the in-progress plan was discussed with the local school improvement advisory committee. The board's priorities are the current priorities of the board were considered in finalizing the plan. Those are to think about preschool and the neighborhood schools, review through the lens of poverty, safety and security are critical, create parity among school buildings, support district of distinction, and take cafeterias out of basements. The standards for buildings, the desired characteristics for buildings to provide health, safety, and security, and to support instruction were established first, and then current conditions of each building were compared to the standards. As part of the principles for school buildings, the minimum square footage for each classroom and other operational spaces were also established. Also, the minimum technology and furniture were determined. The cost to achieve the building standards, this is a list of the 11 most expensive schools to bring up the standard established by the Long Range Facility Plan. J.B. Young K-8, $11 million. Monroe Elementary, $7,300,000. Wilson Elementary, $5,400,000. Adams Elementary, $5,400,000. Jefferson Elementary, $5,100,000. West High School, $4,900,000. North High School, $4,900,000. Eisenhower Elementary, $4,600,000. Buchanan Elementary, $4,600,000. Jackson Elementary, $4,500,000. And Madison Elementary, $3,400,000. So the resolution was, where did you want to go with these?
Just these.
Okay. The following were resolved as a matter of our resolution passed on August 27th, 2015 by the board. 1, quality of education. This was being of primary importance. A, J.B. Young is the most expensive school in the district to bring up to the standard established by the Long Range Facility Plan. About twice as expensive, that is $11 million as previously mentioned, than the average cost for the other most needy schools. The current enrollment of J.B. Young puts the school at 57% of capacity. C, because of the low enrollment at J.B. Young K-8, many programs cannot be provided based on the district funding formula. For example, sports teams have low numbers and some teams canceled in previous school years. There is no Gateway to Technology course. The athletic gym is the smallest among the intermediate schools. There are limited numbers in band, orchestra, and chorus, thus not getting the full experience, and there is no family consumer science elective. Number 2, the safety of students. Students will be transported to one of 5 schools, Sudlow, Williams, Smart, Jefferson, and Madison, depending on boundaries to be established. Safety considerations will apply concerning high traffic routes. Number 3, cost of operation. A, the continuous annual savings from repurposing J.B. Young K-8 school would be over $1.9 million. B, the cost to transport J.B. Young students to the 5 new schools is estimated to be no increase over current cost. Some students now transported will be close enough to walk to schools. For example, C, the movement of teacher classroom supplies and materials from J.B. Young to their new schools will be accomplished by the operations department at no additional cost to the budget. And D, it is expected that the reduction in positions with the closing of J.B. Young will not result in personnel losing an opportunity to work at Davenport Community School District. Retirements and normal movement should provide sufficient flexibility to absorb all J.B. Young employees. Number 4, cost of necessary capital improvements. A, the cost to move the ASC to the J.B. Young facility will be offset by using the $1.7 million now programmed for major maintenance at the ASC, plus the funds eventually realized from the sale of the building. B, no additional improvements will be required at the receiving schools to accommodate additional students from J.B. Young K-8. 5, effect on the community. A, the movement of the ASC will assure that the J.B. Young building will be in constant use. B, establishing a community support and presence in the building will prove to be an asset to the neighborhood and provide space for the community organizations to serve the community. And C, the playground, gym, and meeting facilities could be useful to solidify a sense of community. It is planned that if the school closes, elementary students from J.B. Young K-8 school will attend Madison and Jefferson elementary schools. Intermediate students will attend Sudlow, Williams, and Smart Intermediate.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Director Dickman.
Can you talk about why you made the motion with different wording than what was written in the recommended action previously?
There was a discussion with our attorney today, and President Johansson, you had that discussion, I believe.
Yeah, the wording is a little bit different, but after discussing with our attorney and trying to understand specifically what this motion was with respect to our policy, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier. And so she recommended that really the vote to close was made a couple of weeks ago when the board made the motion to close, and that the motion tonight was really only, it wasn't to affirm the decision, it was to affirm the reason for the decisions. Like I say, it's a cumbersome policy, and even though I think we generally understand our policies pretty well, this is one I just felt like we really needed a little bit additional guidance. But that's why we had to change the wording of the motion later.
Okay. Well, I guess the way that I read it, the affirming the decision was something I was comfortable supporting, but considering developments that have happened since the vote, I'm not comfortable supporting the reasons as stated.
Okay. Director Gosa.
Is this just for the motion that we've already had and voted on, or is this include the other option that Dr. Tate presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting?
This has nothing to do with future plans. All this is doing is to affirm the reasons why the board made the decision to close the school. That's all that's happening here.
Okay.
Other discussion? I've got a few things. Similar to Director Gosa's question, I started thinking about these reasons. And I understand the sense of putting these in, and it's kind of a, if we do it, when this resolution was passed, it was back on August 27th, which was before the board moved to close the school. And there was somewhere, oh, it was 4A. Said the cost to move ASC to JB will be offset using 1.7 million now programmed. And as I read that, and I understand the savings and the rationale for putting it in, but it kind of does seem like it's part of the plan. I wanted to verify that this is not part of the plan. It's only if the future plan includes that we move the ASC, then this is what would happen. Is that correct, Superintendent Tate?
That's true. Your approval to close JB Young does not approve anything that will happen. You have several options available. There may be more, but it just that's when we're suggesting that if you close it and if the ASC, if you then approve for the ASC to move, then we wouldn't need to spend the $1.7 million in order to fix up the HVAC in this building.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about, even though I don't want to mix up the future plans with the vote to verify this rationale. The group that I mentioned earlier that I met with last week have some really good ideas, and some of those were interesting, especially that they talked about tracking because of some of the different plans that we had, and that was one that I thought was just right on target. And so some of those I'd like to somehow get the information and get it to the superintendent. The future plans will be discussed in the future, but again, remember that this is really just a vote to affirm that reasoning that the board used. One thing that I talked about earlier was that I was not able to get any relief really in terms of time. There was a question about delaying, and that all that would have done is to delay the vote on the affirmation of the reasons. It would not delay the closing. That decision was made already. I think that's all I have to say. Is there any other discussion? All right. Director Kluhl, did you have
Well,
something?
if you all out there are confused about this, you can understand that we were too. This is a policy that was created as shortly after we closed Grant and Johnson schools. There was some concern that those schools have been closed without sufficient discussion. So this policy was a reaction to those closures, and I think that certainly it could be a policy that is more clear, and why there is a reason to affirm the rationale for a vote that the board has already taken is certainly not clear to me. So I hope this is something the policy committee will take a look at in the very near future.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
No.
Director Gosa.
No.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of policy?
Mr. President,
Director Snyder.
I move that the board accept the policy committee's recommendation to approve board policy 101.05, distribution of printed material.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
These are materials like if someone comes to a school and says, hey, will you pass out all of these flyers to everybody in the school? Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Director Kluhl.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on this policy. I don't want to belabor it, but it is a First Amendment policy, and I think it's very important. So I'd like to talk through it a little bit before deciding whether to offer an amendment or not. The first thing is I would request that the policy committee take a look at the use of the word superintendent or superintendent's designee. I think we're getting wrapped around the axle with that. This is board policy. I think we could say that it's the superintendent's responsibility. We would all understand that he is the person that would be accountable. If the superintendent's designee is given the responsibility by the superintendent, that's fine, but we're holding this guy responsible. So just a thought. I know that back when I was on the policy committee some time ago, we thought this was pretty cool to put in the superintendent's designee, but I think it doesn't make a lot of sense at this point. In paragraph 2, and if you do decide to leave in superintendent's designee, you need to include it in the second paragraph where you say the superintendent shall approve the distribution of material. So you want to put in or superintendent's designee there, but I hope that you'll reconsider that. Also in the second paragraph, in the second to the last sentence, you talk about the superintendent shall not approve the distribution of any material of the superintendent or designee reasonably foresees that the publication and distribution of material may substantially disrupt or materially interfere with the school procedures. But you don't really talk about the procedures. I would like you to consider using the procedures that are provided in the old policy at the very end, the tail end of that. Those procedures were created, paragraph 5 in the old policy were created when we had an instance of people wanting to give out literature. And I think the description there of the procedures would be helpful to the superintendent in terms of applying this policy. So for consideration. The another issue that I have is in the third paragraph, where we talk about this being a policy that is deals with free speech and guaranteed by the First and 14th Amendments. Understand the First Amendment, but the 14th is a Reconstruction era amendment that really deals with citizenship. So I don't know why we include the 14th Amendment in there. It doesn't make sense to me. Midway through the third paragraph, it says, in the event that the superintendent or superintendent designee does not approve the distribution of materials, said person shall immediately notify the student or employee. So it seems like we leave out a third party. What if you have, say, the Gideons or somebody that wants to distribute who is neither staff nor student? So it seems again that in terms of trying to assist the superintendent, you would identify what you would do with a third party. And in the last sentence, simply a wordsmithing thing, the board shall make an independent review and determination as to whether or under what conditions the material shall be distributed. There's the wrong conjunction there. So those are some thoughts that I had in looking through this policy. I think it's very important, but I think that we need to give the superintendent better instruction in terms of how to apply it. So with that, I would offer an amendment that we delay approval of this policy until such time as the policy committee has had an opportunity to review.
I don't think that's an amendment. I think it's just a motion to postpone. That's what you're asking for, right? Not to amend the wording in it.
Oh, no, you're correct. You're correct. This would
Okay.
be a motion to postpone. It would be a motion to delay.
Or delay. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
To the motion to delay. I'm going to say that this is a debatable motion. Is there any discussion on the motion to delay? Director Snyder.
I would like Rachel to come forward, as she was part of the conversation with this, and kind of run through the vetting process, because there's a lot more to this than it appears as far as how things appear on the electronic backpack, and that's how in turn they determine what items can be handed out. So if Rachel, if you could kind of just run through kind of how that process works.
Sure. We accept application for the materials distribution through the Community Education Office. John Border vets those against current practice, looking for potential disruption or inappropriate material in the schools. We allow up to 100 copies per school, and then also post it to our website through the virtual backpack. We're in discussions now on increasing the numbers available to, in particular, our Title I schools, so that there can be broader distribution in the family resource centers, for example, or through family involvement liaisons. I'm not sure if there are specific questions regarding virtual backpack. It is new this past year, so there's a broader electronic access as well.
Director Dickman, or Snyder, did you have more to talk about in that area?
No, not right yet.
Director Gosa.
I have a question on this policy. Is this the reason why my kids don't get stuff coming home about the youth sports programs and stuff? Is that why? And we can only find out about it on Facebook?
There was a parent satisfaction survey conducted probably 3-4 years ago, and the primary issue that emerged was feeling inundated with paperwork home from the schools. And so we've kind of been balancing some of that work by creating the virtual backpack, which is electronic, but then also have materials available at the school. So your question, in particular, in some of our Title I schools, there's been interest in maybe expanding the numbers that are available in those schools, and we're in discussions with that now.
Okay.
number of flyers that would be available through
Yeah,
the
because
school.
my daughter had a cheerleading thing that we didn't know nothing about till it was on Facebook, so it was kind of sad. You're really hindering the youth sports and the feeder programs by doing that.
Yeah, the feeder programs actually don't fall under the virtual backpack. They are considered a school-sponsored activity. So they have a broader distribution, just like you would see flyers from the schools or flyers from the PTA. They are allowed to distribute through the school.
Yeah, because I haven't seen none.
Okay.
I have 2 kids in
Can I
elementary.
comment
So.
on
Okay.
that?
Yeah, and we can talk about specific feeders. There may be some that
It's probably the program itself that isn't doing that due to costs. They can't afford to make those costs, so they're putting things on Facebook because it's much less expensive for these organizations to do that. So that's my assumption there.
Thank you.
But we can check lists as well. We have a list of the feeder programs we can check for you.
Director Dickman.
I guess my first question was, if we approve the tabling, would that mean that we would continue to discuss, or are we going to have to finish our discussion before we vote on tabling?
No, what happens is right now, we're in the discussion portion of that motion to table or delay. And then if that's successful, then there will be no more discussion on this at this meeting.
Okay. So then I guess my understanding from when I was on the policy committee is this whole discussion and the idea of reviewing this policy came about as part of our poverty discussion, that there are some parents that don't have access to, say, Facebook or whatever the electronic means is, or they just aren't going to check it. And so that the only way that an organization like Dad's Club was a prominent example is able to reach those parents and try to get the parents and the family and the students more involved was through some sort of paper method. And I think the board tossed around some ideas on tentative ways where we could find a balance point between inundating our parents with paper, because I get that, and restricting the access. And I think that, some of the ideas that we'd come up with involved, setting certain days, certain times, certain things that they had to do to get part of the paper handout. My concern with limiting it to, we're just going to have more paper copies available, is that still doesn't mean that Susie Sue in 3rd grade is going to know that, on the 3rd Friday of the month, I need to swing by the counselor's office to pick up my flyers. The only way that paper is going to get home and get seen in some cases is going to be if the teacher says, all right, this goes in your backpack now. And maybe some organizations aren't even able to afford the amount of flyers, but for those that want to put the effort in and are willing to work with the district to reduce cumbersome paper amounts, I think that however we do the wording of the policy, it would be a good idea to allow flexibility for some mass paper to go home with students in a way that doesn't become overwhelming.
Director Snyder.
In our discussion at the policy meeting, we had talked about that as well. The dilemma you run into is, how do you decide which organizations get priority, or we're right back to having staff spend an exorbitant amount of time counting, sorting, distributing stacks of papers. And Rachel, you had thrown out a number to us about how many, it's about 15 a month or so organizations that bring paperwork in?
Yeah, that come in. We've probably got 35, 40 posted right now on Virtual Backpack. So it comes and goes with the school year, but.
And also, I guess it's important to mention on this policy, we're trying to step back from it a little bit and really shorten the policy and make it, the administrative regulation on this is actually going to be extremely detailed with the process and how it works. Because right now they have a system in place where they vet the material, and it kind of goes through a sorting process just that way. So again, we felt this better detailed as a administrative regulation, and that's how actually Rachel came up with this refined, simplified draft policy.
Any other discussion on the motion to delay? Oh, I had a question, Rachel. Is there any sense of urgency in approving this policy?
No.
Okay. So we're okay. We're still getting the stuff distributed.
Yes.
In whatever
absolutely.
way we are.
Yep. We want to make sure you all are
All right.
comfortable with the process.
Okay. Student board members, I apologize again. I haven't been focusing on you tonight. This is a policy that affects every student. Do you have any comments? You want to weigh in on this at all? Okay.
Free speech. Andrew.
I'm trying. Okay. Any other discussion? Let me, let's see here. I'm sure it was Director Kluhl that made the motion to delay. I didn't capture. It was Linda that seconded it. All right, we'll call for the vote. This is not the vote on the approval of the policy. This is on the motion to delay to another meeting. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
No.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
No.
My vote is no. The motion passes, and this particular motion then will be delayed to a later meeting. Thank you very much. Move into other discussion items. It's 8 o'clock. We've been at it a couple of hours. Ooh. I'm guessing it's going to be a little bit of a discussion, isn't it? All right. Why don't we take a 7-minute recess, and we'll resume in a few minutes. All right. Superintendent Tate will continue with our meeting. Next up is the discussion of the AVID program.
Thank you very much. Whenever we had our committee of the whole meeting, I provided the board with 3 possible options to look at the use of J.B. Young, and one of them did include the possibility of having an AVID program in the center. And I have with me tonight George Buss. He is the AVID program manager, and he is the one that actually helped us start our program at J.B. Young and then to expand it to our other 2 schools. And he's here to talk a little bit about and certainly answer any questions that we might have, because we're all interested in whether it would be a good fit and what it would look like if it were a program at a portion of the J.B. Young building. So I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you getting us started and keeping us going for this time.
Thank you. I'm George Buss, and I live, contrary to the business card, I live in Freeport, Illinois. I am your program manager for AVID implementation and support in the entire state of Iowa, as well as the state to our east, Illinois. My background with AVID is nearly 20 years old. I started as a teacher, program manager, director in Freeport, Illinois. There was one site in the upper Midwest. And so we had to follow the research base very, very carefully to get the results that we've gotten. So fast forward 20 years, I'm now working for AVID as a program manager full-time, supporting all of the implementations in Illinois and Iowa. We're serving nationally 990,000 students in 5,025 buildings nationally. We're also in the Department of Defense schools. So when I talk about the national implementation, that does include our overseas sites on the Defense Department schools, and in 46 states. AVID is advancement via individual determination. Think about this as accelerating the learning of students as opposed to remediation. So our mission is to close the achievement gap by preparing all students for college readiness and success in a global society. When we started AVID in Freeport, nobody gave it a snowball's chance of working with those kids. So these generally are students. In our not-for-profit, we are going to provide teachers and continue to provide teachers with proven, real-world strategies to accelerate the performance of underrepresented students so that those students and all students in the entire campus succeed in college, career, and life. So we do have the career component, and we follow Larry Guthrie's research on the highest performing sites that were in California in 2000, and that was the base of his study. Every implementation of the 300 that I've been involved with, we have followed Larry Guthrie's research to the letter, and we have not been disappointed in the upper Midwest states. My own personal work, we not only closed the achievement gap with African American students and their white student counterparts in Freeport, we reversed the gap in 2007 to where the highest performing subgroup in 8th grade language arts were African American males. So I stand before you tonight to bear witness to the work that I know these students can do, and I would refer you to avid.org, to the videos of our student presenters at the Summer Institute. Those students live in Davenport, Iowa, and we just need to hear their voice and be given the opportunity. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, members of the board, to talk about this. Remember, those kids in Freeport, nobody gave a chance to. They went to college, they graduated, and now they're working. And so, and most of them are on my LinkedIn account. And so when their promotions come through and their raises and their marriages and their kids, they're still sticking with me 20 years later. So I believe this to my very fiber. And every time we've implemented, there's always been a question. I've worked with the Office of Civil Rights through their audits. We had to implement AVID in 2 districts where there was federal litigation. Now, you're not the most popular person in town when you come in and say, "Hi, I'm here as a result of your lawsuit and I'm going to help you." But in both of those cases, we brought national demonstration status that met a criteria that wasn't defined locally. It was defined nationally as to what that criteria was based on how it's implemented and how the students achieve under the teacher's leadership. So that's the foundation of what this work is. So when JB, we were called to look at JB as the implementation, who's in the middle? Who are these underrepresented students? So the focus wasn't AVID. It wasn't my focus. It was who is attending JB. Now we're looking at who are the students attending Sudlow. So it's done in Davenport by teachers in Davenport, supported by you as the board in Davenport. I merely become a vessel to be sure that those folks have the support. So I'm in JB on a regular basis. We are doing a tutor training tonight in Sudlow, and I'll be back tomorrow night at 4 o'clock to finish that up. So that's the support you get from this person. So it's not about a box that comes in the mail when you implement AVID. It's about what is the intellectual property and how do we build capacity in the sites that we're building. So we're talking about capacity building in Davenport. So it's not about me coming back. It's about what is the leadership here and the return on your investment for AVID implementation. So I think that's the backstory. There was once a comment made about changing the trajectory of student achievement. And the physics is wrong when we look at trajectory, because it presupposes that something goes up, will fall. I'm going to suggest that if we use AVID methodologies to the fidelity of implementation and quality, those students will increase the arc of their growth, but they're going to succeed at such a level that they're not going to fall. They're going to orbit, and they're going to be lifelong learners. And that's the testament of these students that come forward. So now it's no longer about the adults in the school or in the room or in the community. It's about what we do for students so that they go on. And those are tried and true strategies based in the research. So it's not about, well, let's make something up. Mary Catherine Swanson, when we talk about note-taking with a robust system of note-taking, she told me 20 years ago, how do you know what you think till you see what you write? And if you lose that paper, then you're not organized. And she said, all successful people are organized. So now if we have a note-taking system and we have an organizational system and the students are allowed to use those resources so that when we look at those as adults, we see their fingerprints of learning, now they're not going to go away from that. They will go on to their chosen career or their chosen university, and it doesn't go away. So that's the basis of the work we do. And so now I understand there are some questions, and I don't want to belabor the fact, but that covers my preparatory remarks. Questions were propounded to me, and I prepared ahead of time, and I met with Rob and Marianne Corbin. So in the particular order that they were submitted, we want to talk about the cost. So when we look at the parameters of a single building, and that's what the cost is based on, there's a site license of $3,600. My work with JB or Sudlow or Central is tied into that $3,600. And so that allows for the basis for the access of intellectual property and the proper implementation with the proper support. Each new building that implements, there's a building library that's $4,500. And Rob has these costs, so he can forward those to you at some point, but I appreciate you all taking notes more than you'll realize. That is a one-time cost, and then that library is updated digitally after that. So we've got to have resources on the ground, but as those revisions take place, that's an electronic revision. We found that to build capacity, there are a number of persons that will form a site team at each particular site, and we call that the AVID site team. It will be comprised of an administrator, a counselor, and a number of teachers in the subject area, one or two being designated as the teacher of the graded AVID elective. Now those site members have to be trained, and we have a summer institute that we allow those folks to be trained at, and that's about $700 per person registration per that 8-member team. Parenthetically, that does not include travel, meals, lodging, and anything related to that side of it. So that's a cost that's not directly attributed to AVID, but you will have to incur that cost. When we're looking at that, we generously looked at about $500 per person. My recommended site for any future teams moving forward is Minneapolis, and that is a nice place when you live in the Midwest and you stay out of airports, and I can appreciate that more than you know. There are college visits associated with AVID implementation. Students don't have a vision for what it is to be on a college campus unless they see themselves there. So what a child at Western Illinois University sees at grade 7 may be entirely different than what they see in grade 11. They may never have been in a dorm room till grade 7, but now they're in a particle physics lecture in grade 11, and there's 300 people in the room, and they're saying, never been in a class this large. But then they see themselves in that experience. So that, and those are recommended twice a year. And then a cost that will continue to fluctuate depending on how the implementation goes are the trained tutors in AVID. And so this is not your mom's tutoring, get help and turn your homework in. This is Socratic Seminar, where they're talking about how they're learning. And so they're asking themselves deeper questions. So you would hear an AVID student, rather than ask the teacher, I don't get it, can you help me? And the teacher says, tell me what you don't get. And the student says, all of it. What AVID students will begin to do is bring a point of confusion. So they will say to the teacher, Miss or Sir, I've gone through your notes on meiosis and mitosis, and I understand that mitosis is cell division to make new cells, but I don't get how it relates to meiosis. Can you help me? That's why we went into the profession in the first place, for students to ask us deeper levels of questioning. Those students are trained in AVID to ask not only deeper levels of questions in AVID, but across the school. So you actually have two things in play. The graded AVID elective for a targeted set of students, but you also have the school-wide component where every child benefits that's under the leadership of those AVID trained teachers. That's why the importance of building capacity in Davenport is vital. And in fact, I would be guilty of malpractice if I didn't recommend that to you. It's that serious. And my coaching work then with the sites that I deal with in Illinois and Iowa every day is about what is the fidelity. So if on-site visits, which is the same thing an administrator would use in Davenport on their site visits, that's what we align to, because that's the expectation. So we inspect what we expect, and then we coach when we don't see the results that we get. So the question becomes, why are students working in this functioning? Have you thought about what would happen if you did had another way of looking at it? How do students respond when you take another method? Have you looked deeper at questioning? How do you teach the students to question? So that's part of my other job with the work on the regular basis of being in the schools. So that sums that up. And we have also 2 times a year AVID elective teacher trainings. We have one that will be yet this month in Rock Island, Illinois. So you talk about reducing travel costs. Rock Island seemed really, really a good place when you're in this part of the country. And we'll continue to offer them in the Mississippi River Valley. And then also your district director will be trained, have training days 2 times a year. So the bottom line is about $60,000 when you add all of that up. But think about it through the return on your investment, because every one of those teachers that is touched by AVID training is expected to bring the training back to Davenport and use it the next day. And our trainers and our trainings receive a 98 to 99% approval rating from the 35,000 teachers that we train every year. And we are very arduous in that process. And I'm also one of those trainers, so I understand. And I coach new trainers in that model. I live, eat, breathe, and die this. And that'll be my last breath. So I open the floor for questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you. Superintendent Tate, do you have any other comments before we get started?
No, I'd like to see what the other questions are.
Okay, great, thanks. Director Dickman.
The 60,000 number you gave, was that per program, per teacher? What was that pertaining?
That would be for a program implementation in a single building.
Okay. 'Cause one of the discussion things is whether or not to have this program in a special location where students have to opt in and be pulled out of their home schools, or to have it, I feel, more cost effectively in more of our buildings. Can you speak to your thoughts on what are the merits of having a special location for the program versus having the program as part of a school building?
Director Dickman, truth in advertising, and I need to say this just because it's the truth, I've read the Quad City Times. And I understand the J.B. Young discussion based on my reading the Quad City Times. So it would not be, I don't want to tell you I'm up here talking in the esoteric manner. So I understand the body politic in Davenport. And so my recommendations, notwithstanding, will be based on fidelity. In a particular location, and that was one of the other questions that was brought forward. Excuse me just a minute. If Avid is so good, why not implement universally? I think that gets to the root of your question as well, and probably questions for all of you. We have a concept in Avid called school-wide, which I thought the innovation of Dr. Tate's question to me when he brought that up about, do we do that as a building immediately? It's very provocative, but it can be done. And especially if you think about a federal lawsuit, the judge expects something to happen with some immediacy. So we have what's called school-wide. So we could look at a site that said we not only want to train the core to do Avid in a school vis-a-vis Sudlow, which is what the expectation was, but then what do the Sudlow teachers do when they're not teaching, if it's the Avid elective teacher, if they're in their subject area, then they're using the same methodologies. So that's where it's going school-wide. But it's organic in the Sudlow implementation because the notion was we were going to focus on the elective class. Your question speaks to what do we do as the school. So if you think about, rather than the focus on the core, if that school says we want to implement universally, now you're going to have two bodies of work happening at the same time. And I have supported that in the past. That's not something that I have not done. My question then is, where is the site and when do I get started? So, but it's provocative because if we look at it as a reform initiative, then we're saying something else over here. So it's really not a reform initiative. It's just doing school well because you're focused on every child. So I can support it in either case. It's up to this body, whichever building's designated, to tell me this is how we're going to do it, and we train that initial cadre of staff to move forward because this is what we expect will happen and this is what we're going to inspect.
I really appreciate your knowledgeability and clearly your passion. Everyone I've talked to or everything that I've read about this program has just been sparkles and unicorns, or that this is a really helpful, that this is a great program, and I hope that you don't interpret my potentially muted enthusiasm as disapproval of the program. It's that we have a $5 million, which you're aware of, that we have a $5 million gap, and starting a $1 million program is
Steel sharpens steel. So if you go to a Socratic seminar, not everybody's going to agree, but the wisdom comes out of the ability to disagree and then come to consensus. So I take no offense to anything you've said.
And I really do like the idea of if we can find grant funding for this, and I would, even if we do have it as a special program at JB, I think that I would like to see it come to our other middle schools. We have opportunity costs that we have to balance, and we had someone speak here earlier about how their library is closing early hours, so it's tough decisions.
I understand.
Anybody else? Director DeSalvo.
I have another question about, so you said $60,000 total cost, and that's per year?
No, ma'am.
Year over year.
I apologize.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, I may have
that's the
misunderstood.
first-year implementation.
That's first year implementation.
So the ongoing costs would be your site license, that's a $3,600. And then there would be the site team training ongoing, so that was at $700 per. In this case, it would be Minneapolis. My supposition and my recommendation would be that eight-member core would continue for a number of years to build capacity. But please consider the mobility of teachers, and they make decisions that may not be in the best interests of students, like retirement and death and things like that. So we have to be sure that we make accountabilities for retraining when necessary. I recommend to sites that they create a spreadsheet on the first year and who's on the site team and what they've been trained on, because as soon as that person leaves that line, we go across the spreadsheet and we know what training we've lost and where we need to come back and build. But also that group is going to continue to be trained during the year. Okay. There is a district director fee of the person I have contact with. It's Marianne Corbin. And I interface with her on a regular basis, so I am her direct resource. So if it's a weekend text, if it's an 8 p.m. email that comes through, those resources come from me 24/7. That's why I am where I am. And I've done the work Marianne did, so I know what it means to have a question answered at Saturday night at 8 p.m. when you're stressed. And that's how I do business. So I need somebody on the ground in Davenport that I can interface with 24/7. And so the question becomes, the board has questions about Avid implementation. Can you come? And my response was, immediately. That's just how we roll. So we have to designate that person, but then that trainer of trainers model exists so that work can continue to be done. And then your tutor and college visit costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Director Hayes.
Could you please state again the individuals on your team, the administrators and
the 8-member site
yes,
team,
please.
Director Hayes. We require an administrator and a counselor in that site. The other 6 members are teachers from, and essentially, not essentially, they need to be the strongest teachers that are in the building, because we're asking them to engage a population that hasn't engaged school previously. They're underrepresented for various reasons. And so they have to have their A game. And that's who we're seeing at Davenport right now. And I've been in their classrooms. So, and then 1 or 2 of those teachers will be designated as the Avid elective teacher. And they will be trained specifically on implementing writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. It's the college conversation for students who are not having a college conversation at the table. It's for kids who don't have the college conversation because they don't have a table. They're truly in the middle.
Director Snyder.
Right now, if I understand correctly, this program is at Central, it's at Sudlow, and it's at JB.
That's correct,
Is that
sir.
correct? How long has it been in each of those facilities?
This year is Sudlow's first year, and we're just training the tutors right now. So this is their first year implementation.
Okay.
Same with Central. And they attended their first summer institute this last summer. So we're seeing the very fruit of that labor right now on the tree. JB is 4 years. Thank you. I've got about 100 buildings, so if sometimes I pause, it's just because that little wheel turns in my mind and it says searching. So they have had 4 years. So what we saw when the JB kids were ready to go to Central, the question was asked, now what? These students are now in 8th grade, and they've done phenomenal with their work under Jessie Bishop's teaching. And I've been in her classroom twice a year. So then the provision was made by you to allow them to go to the graded AVID elective class at Central. And so that teacher that they're working with, and that's her first year with those students. So that's your data points, Director Snyder.
Director DeSalvo.
Can you tell me the ratio to teacher to student? Do you have a preference there?
My preference is what either the contract allows for in the district or what the building teacher-student ratio is. It's got to look like the building. If you have less students enrolled, then it looks like a special. And it's not a special when you're going to accelerate. So it's got to look like the building. You and I, any of us, should be able to walk through the building and just look at numbers. We shouldn't see anything different when we cross the door of AVID.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Dickman.
Since we do already have a great core of staff that are currently doing the program at JB, would you see it as feasible to quasi-transplant that program into, say, SMART, or would it not work?
Based on what I heard at the board meeting tonight on how transferability would work, that would have to take precedent. And if that person or persons ended up in a location, wherever that would be a blessing. Wherever they end up, it will be a blessing. But that would be up to the structure of the contract on how those positions are divvied up, and those would take place.
So if that's something that we prioritize was keeping those staff members together to be able to establish a program that was already
if in
better
your
equipped,
purview
I
as the
guess.
board, if you said as a board, this is what we're going to make happen, then my position at that point would be to engage the staff in that brick and mortar complex wherever you indicate that's going to be.
Thank you.
Director Kluhl.
Yeah, I liked your comment. This is an acceleration, not remediation.
Amen.
Is this a program for A students?
For
Straight A
who?
students. Straight A students.
Interesting you asked that. And I had a conversation with a physician's wife and her son. He was getting straight A's. There was absolutely no rigor on his schedule ever. Regular this, regular this, regular this. No honors in middle school, no AP his freshman year. And he was truly underperforming. And when you think about that, he had a wonderful GPA, couldn't go anywhere with it. And actually just needed kicked in the butt. And so when we went to the interview, the mom was going to go into the interview with the counselor and the AVID elective teacher. And I said, let's go to my office and have coffee. Well, no, I'm going to be in there. I said, Lila, come to my office. We're going to have coffee. Well, you don't want me in there. I said, you're a wise woman. I said, this is not advancement via Mama's determination. So this is advancement via Chris's determination. He's going to carry the day in there. So that's exactly it. So you could have a straight A student with absolutely no rigor ever on that schedule. How are they going to achieve at the university their freshman year? They're going to slam up against the wall, and they're going to come back here to Davenport and say, oh, that didn't work. We've got to put them in their paces now, so when they get to the U or to the Navy or to their trade, that they have the ability to navigate rigor and not slam against the wall. That's exactly it.
So while your sweet spot is, according to your website, the BCD students, there's also a place for those students that might need a kick in the butt.
Thank you.
What about grant funding, in your experience, do you see other programs readily being able to get grant funding?
We have a wonderful foundation here locally that I know is supporting Central and Sudlow. That same organization is supporting, I was just looking for the cameras and the microphones. They're also supporting Rock Island. Federally, if you use Gear Up funding for your AVID support, then your AVID students have to meet the criteria of Gear Up. If it's a Title I school, Title I funds can be used for everything but hiring the teacher. So as you look at your Title I funding, and this meets, we fought these battles 20 years ago when we first put AVID in the Upper Midwest. So these are scars that I carry, and I remember the battles well. But I would suggest that we do have a template for a number of foundations. It's just a matter of who knows who. And that's sometimes it's easy. It's hard for me to get an answer at the door because I have AVID on my business card. When my business card said teacher, Freeport, Illinois, people return my phone calls. And so I think, though, we have compelling data with a number of states and how foundations and organizations have supported us in the past, that if, for instance, Bush's Baked Beans put a couple mil on the table in Minnesota and North Dakota. Now, they're short term, but it gives us the ability to train to capacity while we have the cash.
What would be the ultimate measure of success for your students? I threw that ultimate in there just to make you think a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back on you. I need to know what you believe the measure of success is for your students.
Funny you should ask.
Because we need to begin with the end in mind. But if you all lay that out there and say we expect 100% of our graduates in AVID to graduate with a diploma, have a letter or letters of acceptance to universities, and scholarship money, then we can pretty much guarantee 100%. Now, when you ask me about the sustainability on the college campus, we will find at the beginning of year 3, AVID students return in their junior year 75% of the time above their non-AVID peers. So 3/4 of those kids continue on their junior year. And that's the clearinghouse data. That's not AVID data. That's independently verified. So if you say college readiness and success and sustainability is important to you as the board, then the site team knows that coming into it, because that's what we're going to inspect. Now, if I may, for 2 minutes, sir. My oldest son went directly to the United States Navy. He turned down an academy appointment, and he said, Dad, I want to enlist. I'm as strong now as I will ever be, and I don't want to live my life saying I should have. Now, how as a father can I stand in the way of that? And away from the microphone, I can tell you some other stories about that, but he's had 4 deployments. And I've talked to his one of his LTs that was on him with him on 3 deployments. And he said, Sir, your son took better care of me on deployment than I could ever take care of him. Is he successful? Absolutely. He has not been in a college classroom for 1 credit. His younger brother has 3 different undergrad institutions on his transcript. And he ended up at Western Illinois University in Parks and Tourism admin, and is employed full-time with benefits immediately after his internship. So the kids used to say, Mr. Buss, how come your boys aren't in AVID? I said, they are. Whose class? I said, oh, it doesn't meet here. It meets at 5 o'clock. It's called Kitchen Table AVID. They said, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, I use the AT&T method. You haven't taught us that. I said, sure. I said, you reach out and touch them. So, not that we abused them, but they had binder checks. They had points of confusion. What did you do today? I don't know. It's not an answer at my kitchen table. And so you're delivering the goods every day. So that's, thank you for allowing me that. So if you say, what's this guy believe? I got 2 sons with beautiful daughters-in-law. And I am blessed every day.
Well, as a fellow booster, thank you for not being in the way of your kids' passions.
You can't.
Can't do that. I don't think. Last question. It's a college readiness program. 46% of kids in Finland who have a pretty remarkable educational system go directly into the trades. When you say college readiness, do you also mean tech school for trade?
Underrepresented students, so these students and all students across the entire campus succeed in college, career, and life. So we have, if you look at a parallel track of AVID, we also have CTE. So if you translate college-going skills to career and technical ed, we just had to change the vocabulary. And so that is there. Rock Island, my last meeting at Rock Island, I sat next to the welding teacher who's on the site team. And we talked about the difference between MIG, TIG, and plasma. And I said, you're dealing with MIG and TIG. And I had some manufacturing background, and so I knew enough to be dangerous. But when we were hiring people, when I was in the HR function, I said, so can we come back to the welding room? He said, why do you want to bring them back here? I said, we're hiring welders. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I want to see them lay down MIG and TIG. And I said, well, look at the quality. I said, don't you do that? We've never done that. I thought, really? So the question was, if you got MIG and TIG and plasma and somehow you confuse the two, you're going to get a totally different product than what's expected on the plant floor, especially if you're cutting rather than welding. And he glommed onto that right now, and he said, yeah, there's room for this. These kids need to understand that and be able to communicate. No, it's not plasma. We're not doing plasma today. We're doing MIG. And then what do you need? So that whole interaction, like the college study group, becomes now an interaction on the plant floor.
Mm-hmm.
It exists.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Superintendent Tate.
George, thanks for coming. He's been here since 5 or earlier, and I'm apologize I couldn't meet with you. I had other meetings, so here's the question that I'd like to ask you. This is kind of a wild idea we're dealing with. It's out of the box. I just wanted to give the board some options and the community some options. But say we have a college and career prep academy, 125 students, 130, 2 6th grade, 2 7th grade, 2 8th grade. It's a magnet school, and anybody who wants to come can come to this school. So you're going to have the normal spread of people you'd have in the 6th through the 8th grade. So, and I said, I like this AVID thing. I've seen it work 2 places. So what would it look like with a career and college prep academy with an AVID school-wide?
AVID, there's 11 essentials when you implement AVID. The first one being student selection. You've accomplished one thing immediately by indicating that it's an academy, because the students who are saying they want to be there are already making a determination. So now within the population that says they want to be in the building, who is in that core of the AVID elective class? But if you overtly train the building in the methodologies, then it doesn't matter what class they're in, because the methodologies then would be good for all students. And so in the academy setting, and the parallel to this would be Phoenix Military Academy in Chicago. We did that back in 2005. Every child that comes to Phoenix Military Academy knows it's a military school, and so they're already choosing to be there. Within that network now, AVID exists. So you're coming to Phoenix Military Academy knowing you're going to be in ROTC and knowing you're going to be in AVID. Now, it ran its course from 04 to 09, and in 09, they had no more room for AVID on their schedule because every child that came to Phoenix Military Academy, 912, they were taking multiple AP classes, but all the teachers had been trained, so it didn't matter whose class you were in, you were getting WICOR and college prep, and they're turning out numbers of students who are going to the military academies. Now it's a repository for those students, and you are reasonably, you have a reasonable assurance that if you go to Phoenix Military Academy in Chicago, you have a military career and you're ready to go. And but they couldn't fit AVID in the schedule anymore because all the students were taking at least one AP class, and they were getting supported in AVID by that AP teacher. So Dr. Wapatchit called me and he said, "I've got a problem." And I said, "I'll be there tomorrow." I trundled into Chicago, and he showed me the schedule. He said, "We have no room. What do you recommend?" I said, "Are the teachers excellent? Are they teaching the best methods to the students?" Absolutely. He went through the evaluations. I said, "Your time's up." He said, "You don't need it anymore." But I said, "The only assurance you need to give me is that you will continue the high level of training for new teachers coming in. Otherwise, it'll languish, and you'll end up with something else." So you're taking care of both of those. You're saying, this is where you're going to come, and when you get here, this is what you're going to do. So you've already set 2 filters for every child coming to that place. And it's universal between college, prep, and career, because it's just good teaching.
Anybody else? I've got a couple questions. And one of them might go to Dr. Tate, because I still can't quite figure out the numbers. If we looked at saving $1.9 million by closing JB, and the numbers that George has been talking about for implementation of AVID don't seem excessive, but there's a big differential between the originally anticipated savings, George's representations, and what I think you had guessed the cost of AVID might be. And that's what I'm a little confused on.
Well, again, very rough figures. Just I wanted to bring you something so you'd have an order of magnitude. After our last meeting, we went back and looked and reconfigured and figured, what is the minimum teachers we would need? Let's say if we had 175 students, and we capped it at that. And if we had that, looking at all of the teachers we would need, we would probably be saving from the closing of the J.B. Young about $1,400,000. So originally I said about $900,000, but again we reconfigured. But we have to keep looking at that. Every time we're looking at how many teachers we need. Now it looks like we may need some more aides, so I'd have to go back and do that. But I would say the difference between the choice A, which is just close J.B. Young, send everyone to other schools without any support, that's $1.9 million, and putting a program in there, even with the cost we saw tonight, probably the difference would be about $900,000.
So even in choice A or option A, I would anticipate there would be some additional teachers somewhere, wouldn't there? I know you're going to distribute.
No, that was the net after we distributed the teachers.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
So again, we've got to keep looking at this. So I don't want someone to grab on and say, Tate said we're going to save $1 million. We're just talking and we're asking questions, and I've got to talk more to George and see what you say, and then, get serious about looking at it if you want to. If not, again, I provided these to give options and choice. Everyone likes choice.
So, and George, I forget when you gave us your bio. Where are you from?
I'm from Freeport, Illinois. 2
Freeport.
hours.
Okay.
It's on the Wisconsin line.
And you must be really busy doing all the work that you do.
It's comfortable.
Well, I wrote down here 990,000 students and 525 buildings.
Those aren't all mine, sir.
They aren't, but you have all of Iowa and Illinois.
Yes, sir. I've got about 112 on my assignment.
112
schools.
Schools. How many students do you think that represents?
60. I've got several that are school-wide, so I'm probably dealing with 24,000 students in those buildings. There's a lot of suburban Chicago.
So you have a lot of different roles in Avid also.
Yes, sir.
And one of them is to be here pretty much as a salesperson, right?
Marketing and communications.
Okay. So I was thinking about all of the words that you've said, and I was thinking about what kind of a warranty would you give on your work?
My personal work?
Yes.
Okay. That puts things on a different playing field. I would say within Freeport, and we've lost several sites, and what I found on the sites that we lose, it's the administrative support. If you change the administrator in a building or a district, it creates such a tremor in the district. But if Avid isn't on that person's purview, sometimes it can't sustain the change. So, but for the sites that I have in the certification process, and especially in light of the DEER grant, my coaching of Davenport and Rock Island, especially in the foundation money, they will certify in year one according to the 11 essentials called for in Larry Guthrie's research. I guarantee you that.
Seem like the kind of person that would. So you probably mentioned, and in the last few sentences, you alluded to leadership. Is leadership an important part, and is it identified specifically in the Avid program?
Yes, it is.
In what way?
And we have specific training for the building level administrator. So my work with CAP, and in fact I met with him at Franklin Middle School in Champaign, Illinois, because he asked me a number of questions. And he said, so where can we go see this? I said, CAP, come to Champaign. And we had a showcase meeting there. So CAP walked through the very hallways of a national demonstration middle school. He saw kids that looked like the kids at Sudlow. He saw teachers that looked like the teachers at Sudlow. And when he left, he has a vision of what Sudlow Avid implementation looks like, not just the elective, what the whole building looks like. So we spent time in the Avid elective class, but we spent time in classrooms in the morning and in the afternoon. And then we reviewed the 11 essentials of implementation.
Over the last several weeks, few months, we've had a lot of opportunities to listen to our community about J.B. Young. And there have been a lot of people that, especially community members, that have said that they want to participate in some way. There's a group of people that you probably heard me mention earlier that is interested. They want to do some strategic planning on this area, which is, it involves a lot. I mean, what is important to this community? But as I was listening to what you were saying, I was thinking about, and it was when you were talking about your own sons, and you were saying that Avid starts at 5 o'clock at my house, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's probably the case in a lot of cases. But then I thought, is there any part of Avid that addresses community and parents?
Yes, sir.
And how do you do that?
Within the site team, the Avid site team at the building, there's also the family component because we know we can't do it alone. And so how do we train that site team to engage the community? My own work back in 1998, I got a call from one of the ministers in Freeport, and he said, "What are you doing 2 Sundays from now?" I said, "I'm available." He said, "I need you in the pulpit on Sunday." And that was my response, just the same look as the one on your face. And I said, "Really?" He said, "We are talking to our youth, and they don't hear us. We need to have somebody else come to be in the pulpit who's traditionally not here." So I did remarks on academic redemption. And you can be as bad as you want to be on a Tuesday, and when you come back on Wednesday, you can start all over and redeem yourself academically. So, what community group or groups do we need to engage? And if we're engaging them for the first time, why is it the first time? Or if it's a community group that we have a very strong relationship, how can we leverage this college-going, career-going culture so that they understand what we are attempting to do by supporting their kids? And I say attempt because in some cases the parents, and I'm teaching third generation in Freeport. I started very young. Thank you. It's late. We've got to have some kind of, let's get some blood circulating someplace. So within that view, and I lost my train of thought now, so somebody help me right that ship back. But the parent piece, so if it's a group of parents, did they have a bad experience in their own experience in Davenport, if they're local that long? And that's what we found. And they would call me and they'd say, at this point in life, "George, you know about those teachers up there. They didn't treat me this way. Now how I expect them to treat my kid fair?" That's 2 generations. So if it's a set of parents that have had bad experiences of their own educationally, and then we say, "Oh, come to the school, we're here to support you," they're going to vote with their feet because that's the only vote they have. So how do you reignite what's good about Davenport schools to an audience that may not believe it? But if we work with their kids and their kids go home and say, "This is what I got at Sudlow, and these are teachers that care about me." Now when you say, "Let's have a parent night," they will come because there's a new sheriff in town and we're not doing things same old, same old. And I've done that training.
And we would see it in a year. We'd see a change in the way that
we would see the beginnings of change.
Okay.
And a year might be a little rushed.
Yeah.
But if there's some things you want to see in a year, we will put we will marshal every force to get you what you want to see in a year. If you give me 3 to 5, sir, I will show you significant changes done by your own people in this town.
So one of our beliefs is we believe we must have high expectations for each child, and I would have those same high expectations of you and everything you're doing.
And I would not expect anything less with what you're investing.
Okay. I just have one last question. You said you reversed the gap, but you were talking a little too fast, and I couldn't take down all of my notes.
That was not intentional.
And they weren't organized properly.
I have training for you on that, too.
I'm sure you do. But my question then, because it seemed to relate to the arts more than, I don't think you mentioned math and reading in the reversal of the gap. And I was wondering how those students did in math and reading also.
Okay, the language art tests was a reading and the writing component on the Illinois ISAT, the Illinois test. What we determined at the same time was this gap that existed for black students, but when we looked at the white students, it was the same gap. So I brought in a focus group of black males and white males, and we were at about 2% Hispanic, so I don't want it to look like we made an overt decision not to. Those were the avid students that we had enrolled in the class. So we walked through this. What we found out was when we looked at the algebra grades and pre-algebra for the black students in 8th grade, and we saw what existed, and it was comparable with the white population, we found out it was a curriculum issue. It wasn't a teaching, it was how we were teaching the curriculum that didn't align with the state test. It was a huge alignment issue. So we had all kinds of kids failing. And so then, and sitting at the table was the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And so we got done with the avid part, and I looked at Patty and I said, so Patty, when do you want to have this meeting? And so it ended up revolutionizing the math department. So, and that was the content. But those students went, they went on, but we had to back off the algebra till the alignment could take place.
Interesting. Any other discussion? All right. Well, anything more? Superintendent Tate. Thank you very much, George.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank you, friends.
discussion. Thank you.
You're around tomorrow still?
I'm sorry?
Are you still here tomorrow?
I am going home for dinner,
Okay.
and then I will be back tomorrow at 4. Do you need me earlier?
No, let's just try to link up.
I'm sorry?
Let's try to link up.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
I will call you first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
All right. We have one more discussion item. Policy Director Snyder, you want to lead that discussion?
Sure. I guess I wanted to ask the rest of the board, 901.07, I think could prove to be a lengthy discussion. And I wanted to see if anybody's interested in moving that to the next meeting, and we can go through the rest of them. I left home 18 hours ago, and I'm a little spent.
I would like to second your thoughts that we arrived coming up on 5 hours ago now, so I don't necessarily feel as though my full intellectual capacity is still with us.
I think the rest of these we could get through pretty quickly. So if that's okay with the board, we will save that discussion for the next meeting, assuming, would that be able to be put on the agenda, Mr. President? Okay. So let's run through the remaining ones. 901.06, Student Board of Directors. There were no changes recommended on that. Is there any discussion on this policy? Seeing none. I will say that there is one change on the next policy that we're not discussing, where we added or on social media, and that's just something that's being added to a lot of policies with technology change as of recent. There was one where there was we included phones and technical, or is this, that policy was actually created in 1974, I think I saw on here. So there's a lot of that is kind of outdated. So anyway, that's what that one means. So read through that and we'll discuss it next time. 902.01, bylaws of the board in regards to president. There was a little redundancy at the end, as well as we discussed the particular meetings that we do elect the president. And it was confusing when it said in odd years at the annual meeting, and in even-numbered years, odd years the organizational meeting, and even-numbered years the annual meeting, when in fact not every year or even every odd year do we have an organizational meeting. But we always have an annual meeting, so we decided, you know what, let's just make it the annual meeting, call it good. And then we also said at the annual meeting, you know, to serve a one-year term. Well, if we're voting annually, it's pretty obvious that it's a one-year term. So we just took out some unneeded words. And then at the end of that, we made sure to include, because at the first sentence of the second paragraph, it kind of makes it sound like if the president's not at the meeting, we can't have the meeting. So at the end, we put the vice president will preside over board meetings in the absence of the president. Is there any discussion or on that?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about that last sentence. Seems a little wishy-washy. The president of the board shall be governed by Robert's Rules of Order, revised except as otherwise provided. So, are we going to abide by Robert's rules, or are we only going to do it when we so choose? In which case, is it a policy?
Pretty
Or
much
just a
as we
comment?
choose. I mean, that's how we've been operating. We
I know
don't
it-
follow explicit Robert's Rules of Order. We kind of do our own thing, and I guess that's pretty much what that says. There's another policy that even alludes to that further down the road, so.
Yeah, I noticed that. And that's when you have like a vote on bylaws where you need a larger majority. But there it says, unless we decide we want a different, it doesn't seem like, it's kind of like Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean again. It's, you know, Johnny says, he says, somebody says, well, it's the Pirates Code, you have to do this. And he says, well, I view the code more as guidelines than code.
We laughed about it at the policy meeting. It's like, wow, this is pretty much saying that we follow Robert's Rules of Order except for when we don't.
Yeah. I'll just take it as
which-
amusing, I guess.
Yeah, but we didn't know a better way to put it unless we want to really upend and change things. And in the past, the board has said they don't want to do that. They like the way we operate now, so that puts us to where we're at. Is there any other discussion on that one? Mr. President.
Yeah, I got to bring up the penultimate paragraph, and it said the board president is the official spokesperson for matters and actions of the board, blah blah blah, and there's another policy that discusses this. I didn't get the policy number, but in that it has been an issue with our media and with some of our board and with our community. I think that it's important for the board to weigh in on this and to figure out what exactly do we mean, because I'll tell you from the president's perspective, it can be frustrating, and that's not the only perspective that there is. So I'd like to explore that little piece of of this policy a little bit more.
And I will note also that we took out entire before board because we kind of look at the board as one entity as it is, so it, again, just seemed unnecessary, so. Anyway, a discussion on that particular aspect of the policy?
Well, what's that?
Probably what you're going after there.
So what I'm asking for is, where does the board want to be relative to? It says that a statement from an individual board member shall be considered a statement of that board member only. Shouldn't be construed as reflecting the position of the entire or of the board. And this is an issue that there have been there's been discussions about freedom of speech, about constitutionality, a lot of things, and another similar policy talks specifically about the interactions with the media. And so the question is, do all board members, should all board members have that freedom to speak, to communicate with the media when they determine that it's appropriate, or should it be, and part of the difficulty is this whole thing about reflecting the position of the board. And we had, in fact, recently, there was an article in the paper that was really interesting, because there were some things that were said right at the very end, and I got to tell you, I tried to contact the paper to find out, because I couldn't figure out how they had determined certain things, because I know that I hadn't said anything, and I thought, how in the world could they interpret things and then put them in the paper? The difficulty in working with the media, and especially the TV, is that you may talk for 15 minutes and they take 3 seconds out for their purposes. So that's the question. Should everybody go to the media, talk to the media on their terms? Should it be the president? That's the question. And how do we put that into policy? How do we think about it? Director Snyder's leading the conversation.
Director Hayes?
I'm not quite sure how to put it in policy, but I think we need to figure it out, because it sends mixed messages to the community when you have 7 individuals giving their opinion, and we need to come to a general consensus. One person will basically give the overall gist of the conversation, because it shows a strong feeling that we're not unified. And I feel we need to, what we discuss at the table is clear and open, everything is transparent. And I just feel if the media needs a synopsis, what better person than the president would give that? And if not the president, if just a designated person. But I just feel it needs to be narrowed down to one person. And it's not necessarily reflecting or cutting out your constitutional right. It's just basically reserving it for the appropriate place and time, in my opinion.
And that is actually the policy that is in place right now. It does pretty well define that it is the president. My only concern with this paragraph as it's written, and I didn't think about it till later, was we are dictating how people will perceive when a board member speaks. We can't really dictate how they're going to perceive that, because it says a statement from an individual board member shall be considered a statement of that board member only. Well, maybe that's the intent, but we have no way to control how they perceive it. So in a way, this paragraph kind of doesn't make sense in that aspect, because we have no control over that. Go ahead, and then Director Dickman actually was first. But
okay, go ahead.
I think that there's 2 issues here. There's the policy and there's the interpretation of the policy. The policy clearly states that the president is the spokesperson for the board. So if a board member wanted to go out and say, I, so-and-so, am speaking for the board when I say that this is the policy we're taking, then that is against the policy. If that person wanted to go out and say, in my opinion, I think that this is a good idea or this is a bad idea, I don't think that that should be restricted within reason. If it was very easily able to be construed as attempting to speak for the board, then that's one thing. But like, for example, I liked a quote about education on Facebook today. Am I speaking for the board when I like that quote about education? Because it broadly refers to education, and I also happen to be a member of the Davenport School Board. When we get into this policing of conduct and policing of speech, who would want to run for the board when clearly the reason most people would want to run for the school board is because they're passionate about it. And if they can't do anything with that passion, if they can't express that passion, then why on earth would they want to serve on the board?
Go ahead.
So I think there are a lot of reasons to serve on the board, and I will say that, at least in my case, to serve on the board was I never had the intent or even the thought that an important part of it would be to communicate with the media. That just, to me, serving on a board is serving on a board as a member of the board and to make good decisions, and in this case, on behalf of our district and in some cases on behalf of all Iowa students. One of the difficulties, and I didn't bring with me the interpretation from Margaret Buckton. Margaret Buckton is a very, very smart and articulate person, and she has written on this, and doggone it, I didn't bring all of the other board policies. I did get board policies from surrounding districts, and some of the surrounding districts are even more restrictive. They say that media is directed to the superintendent and to the president, and and I think that one of the difficulties is that when a board member uses the word we as a for instance, and that has happened, and when somebody says we, it's pretty easy to interpret that we is the board, and then when the board is mentioned, it's pretty easy to interpret that that is talking on behalf of the board. The difficulty that, again, as president, trying to police it is really tough. Trying to interpret this stuff is really tough. And I think what we should be doing as a board is trying to figure out what the best solution is for the students. What's best for student achievement? I think we have to be careful about why is it important? If it's important for student achievement that every person on the board, and I think that's part of what the discussion is here, but either everybody should have that authority to speak, to write whatever communication it is with the media when they think it's appropriate and in whatever way they think is appropriate, or there has to be some sort of guidance. And I'm just saying, it's if we want to open it wide open, then that's a whole different approach. But I think we have to weigh in.
Director Gosa.
I guess for myself personally, I'm on the executive board for United Way, so I could be speaking for them to the media, for my union hall or any other group that I'm associated with. So are you, with what you had said, are you saying that I would be interpreted as speaking for the board as a board member? Because I mean, you get associated with a lot of other things and some of the other stuff you do. So I mean, I'm not going to not talk to the media if they put it that I'm a board member. I can't help what they put. They only take 9 seconds, 27 words of what you say, and put it on TV. So I just wanted to get that out there. I mean, I speak for various other things. I mean, I've been at rallies and all kinds of stuff where they'll come in and interview you for something, but I never say I'm a board member. I just say what group I'm affiliated with now. They might misinterpret that and be like, oh, this or that. You know, it's all media interpretation. That's all I just wanted to say.
Dr. Johansson?
Yeah, I just need to clarify. So you're saying that you would speak on behalf of this board if, I thought, can you clarify for me? What were you saying?
I'm just saying that I speak on whatever entity I guess I'm with at whatever I'm doing. I wouldn't speak for the board. No, I speak for myself. I'm my own person. I'm a parent with kids in school, so if I ever spoke of something, it would be as a parent or as myself, not.
But if we're here and the TV people ask you for an interview, are you going to talk to them as a board member? I mean, we're right here after the meeting. And they said, what do you think about the decision on J.B. Young?
From my interpretation of it, we're not allowed to, so I would say no. That, because I thought we weren't allowed to, so that, I guess, is that correct?
It's, no, that's part of this board policy is not crystal clear, certainly. And the intent is not to prevent board members from speaking or writing to or with the media. The intent is to try to prevent every member from speaking on behalf of the board. And I'm just saying that is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And that the things that I've seen and the things that I've read are such that, from my perspective, it would take a lot of wordsmithing to change them in a way that they would not be speaking on behalf of the board.
So so if you did agree to do the interview, never use we, always I. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
It's probably a little bit more than that, but it's at a minimum that, and it's at a minimum saying I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf of the board, to take that clarification, and just to be really careful, because they are not going to put that in on whatever, especially TV.
So would that be, I guess if they want to do the interview, should the board member say, I'm going to state this as myself, but I need that on there that I'm speaking for myself and not the board, and ask them to include that if they want your thoughts on it?
They still may put it on there, they may not, and that's the problem. It's
Right.
that staying clear of putting ourselves in that situation. That's the way I interpret it. I guess since the article came up that was in the paper, I guess there was a couple things. I think the article was really poorly written. It said in there as board members, we don't have the opportunity to present our I don't know the words they used, our beliefs, our whatever, to the board. And that's not the case. I mean, there's a time and a place, and we all can talk to the media. We talk to them right here by having our discussions and sharing at the board table. The board table is our platform and our podium to speak, to share our passions, to share our beliefs, our feelings. If the media was truly interested in what we had to say and what we wanted to share, they would be here. And they're not right now. So whenever you volunteer, I think, for a private interview with the media, you are putting yourself in a position where they can make it look like you're saying anything they want to make it look like. And that is the problem, because it can become an issue for the entire, the entire board. Ms. Dickman?
Our general meeting started 3.5 hours ago. I don't exactly want to fault the media for not caring, because they don't want to stay for 3.5 hours for a 20-second story that they're going to air. Now, I think that we can find a way to balance that, during our 2-hour recess, the president or the superintendent gives a quote and says something, but there have been incidences where even just wanting to state, in my opinion, this, that hasn't been permitted, because there was concerns about the perception that even with the clarification, even with the stipend, even with the everything, that would still be interpreted as this is the position of the board. And so that's where it really comes down to, is it the interpretation? Is it the policy? Because if we're judging the policy based on what could possibly, in the realm of all possible certain outcomes, be considered as speaking as the board by any person reading the news, well, then that's a pretty high benchmark. And, you know, to be judgmental of the media, I think is harsh, because that's how we communicate with people. Most people are not going to stick around for a 3.5-hour meeting. Even our former director, I'm amazed, is still here. It's a long meeting. It's a lot to sift through. If we don't make use of the media, we're never going to get our message out there, our positive message out there. They're going to have stories about issues at some of our building. They're not going to say, school board really wants to do the best that they can for students. Funding constraints are concerning. You know, if we don't put a quote out there with that, then they're going to say, okay, well, we're going to go find this drama story at one of the schools. So if we're not going to be cooperative with the media, and we're going to say, well, you didn't stay here for the 3.5 hour of the meeting, you know, I think that's ridiculous to ask them to show concern by staying here for that extended length of time, when they are going to be using a 20-second clip. All they're asking for is 1 or 2 opinions, and they could get it from the board, the president of the board, if that's the preferred method of just saying, this is what's going on.
And I disagree with that completely, because that's them doing their jobs. We are only here 2 nights a month, and I don't think it's too much to ask for them to, well, 2 months for regular board meeting, or twice for regular board meetings and once for a committee of the whole. So I'm just saying, we can, I guess, just agree to disagree. But again, we still can say what we want right here, right now, at the board table, with no limitations. That is our platform, and that's what I wholeheartedly agree.
So in 5 districts, only 1 did not have this sort of a rule, and it was absolute chaos, because they want dirt. Sorry. They want the worst story they can find. They want to pit each board member against the other. And you can think you're going to say something very innocent. They will ask you another question. If you said it, you got to answer that one. Then you want to explain yourself more. It was absolute chaos. And again, because that's what they want. They're not trying to find, you know, unanimity, what the good feelings on the board, how great you guys work together, the great discussions you want. They want to find the chink in the armor, and that's too bad. It really is. So I understand the need to want to say things, but it just never works out, and I wish it would. And I had to at least say that. That's from my experience. Too bad they're not here to hear that.
Director Hayes.
And that is very true. I've had that happen firsthand and tried to shut it down, and it continued on and on and on. So you literally have to say no and just be done with it, because it's too easy to say one thing and have the verbiage totally turned around, and it means something other than what you intended to say.
Director Johansson.
A couple things. One is, I concur with both you, Director Snyder, and with Director Dickman. I do believe it's the media's job. On the other hand, I think that the media can be really helpful. I think the idea of, especially if we anticipate a lengthy meeting, which I rarely do, but like tonight, and maybe it would make a little bit of sense to cultivate that relationship with them, which I think we generally do have a good relationship, and I think our media generally does a really good job. I gotta tell you, one of my brothers married a gal who used to be a writer for the Sun-Times in Chicago. And when I started all this, and I got asked, and our president at the time, she would hammer us on, don't speak to the media, don't do this, but my brother's wife said, if the media wants to talk with you, don't. And she said that generally the media, and especially the print, already had the story written. They had as the superintendent mentioned, the dirt. They're looking for certain things. And she expressed that so strongly, and be incredibly careful. I think that there still has to be some sort of communication. But I will say, one of the other things that's happened, and I think Director Dickman and Director Kluhl have mentioned to me the concept of, a vacuum of information. And I think about that relative to the timing. And I think that if the idea is that we have to have something out there, and we have a district spokesperson with Dawn Saul that is speaking, I think, frequently on behalf of the district. But I think that there are a lot of good things, and she's communicating with the media, I think, frequently, saying we've got good things going on here and here and here and here. So I don't feel that same compulsion was, but there was a different word that I was trying to say. Anyway, compulsion to speak to the media. But I think that's another aspect of it. I don't know if we need to talk any more about this, Director Snyder. We've said a few things, but I still don't think we're clear.
I don't think we are either. Is there any final?
It's just interesting that, there's one board, 7 board members, and if you listen to this discussion tonight, where's the board? But if you were to take one person of the board and talk to the media, that could be the board's thoughts. On the other hand, and I don't want to extend this because I've been kind of quiet about this, and I know everybody's about ready to go home, but the Board of Supervisors recently the press went to them and asked their opinions on the psychiatric hospital situation, where they were going to vote on that, what was their position. And I thought there was absolutely no harm in those supervisors talking about where they were at the present time. It was clear that that was where they were at as people at that end of that certain time. But they did, I think, go to each of those supervisors and get their opinions. So it was all of them together. So I think there's room for discussion about this. I think we have the most liberal policy in the state. I've looked at a lot of them based on our last discussion. Maybe it needs to be more open. I would think we might want to talk about this further. But I know we have a board policy that's coming up, and if that comes up, we'll approve it as it's written and move on and deal with it another time, perhaps. But it's certainly worthy of the board's discussion, I believe.
Moving on to 902.03, bylaws of the board in regards to school board secretary/treasurer. There were no changes recommended. Does anybody have anything on that? Okay. 902.05, in regards to legal counsel, there were no changes recommended on that one as well. I think that one was pretty well written by Wendy anyway, so I'm assuming that there's not too much to debate on that. 902.06, there were no changes recommended to that as well on collective bargaining negotiations. And on 902.07, litigation authority, there were no recommended changes on that one as well. And on 903.04, there was only one minor change in regards to regular meetings. The time was changed from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the end, from where we changed our regular meeting time since this was last reviewed.
Might want to reflect a change in the name of the ASC instead of the Davenport Schools Administration Services Center.
Oh, very good. Good catch. Very good catch. And 903.05, in regards to special meetings, there were no changes recommended on that one as well. And 903.07, quorum for meetings. Again, no changes recommended. We did have a discussion at the policy meeting about the second paragraph where it says, for example, closed sessions require a 2/3 vote, but we can't really think of any circumstances where we vote in closed session except for when we vote to go out of closed session. So, and those are always fairly unanimous. So I'm not even sure why that's really necessary to be in there, because we couldn't even think of an instance where we vote in closed session. So I'm not wondering if maybe we could just strike that whole second paragraph as unnecessary, but
I'm thinking you could.
903.08, bylaws of the board, rules of order. Again, basically we follow Robert's rules of order unless we don't. And 903.09, bylaws of the board on distribution of agenda. Again, that's pretty straightforward, and there were no changes recommended there as well. One of the questions I had in the meeting was complete agendas except for confidential items shall be furnished to student board members prior to the meeting, and I didn't know if those were still going out to student board members since we went to board docs and away from the packets, and they are. They still do have access via board docs to see the agendas and the information. And then the last one, if I'm not mistaken, is minutes of the meeting, and again, no changes recommended. And we did talk about, since we had voted about a year or so ago to minimize what goes in the meeting or in the minutes, that it's just bare bones, that it is still covered by this as it's written. So, seeing no discussion.
Just kind of interesting with closed sessions. 21st century, we don't do tape recordings anymore. We do digital. We do digital recordings. This is not tape.
Yeah.
So,
It's digital.
Yeah, there's no tape in there, so.
yeah, it says tape recorder.
Oh, come on. You wrote it on there.
Thus concludes the policy discussion.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on and get done. Are there any administrative reports? Are there any board requests? Director Kluhl, dated today, 11/9. Agenda item, provide time for a summarization of comments on creating innovators at the next regular meeting. Great, thank you. And then I just put two on one request. Both agenda items. One is to discuss the communications with the media. It's another policy that I think we actually reviewed recently. It's not on our list to be reviewed. And one of the things, I'm trying to think if I can put it in here as an agenda item. Along with that is not only to discuss that policy, but to consider discussing the policy or the approach to the policy with the media in a separate type of forum. And then number two is an agenda item. Discuss timing with respect to ideas that the superintendent and president have. How soon should those be communicated to board members? Are there any other board requests? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. This meeting's adjourned.